My friendship to all of you precludes my involvement with any one of you. But if you wanna make love, then I do too, and I'll be right there behind you. All in the name of oh, all in the name of oh, all in the name of oh.
Hey ho, let's go, constant listeners. It's time yet again for the Losers Club, a Stephen King podcast from Consequence of Sound. My name is Randall Crandall Colburn, and I'm a senior writer at Consequence of Sound, and today we venture into one of our most anticipated locales of the King universe. It's the Pet Sematary. That's right, it's time to discuss the 1983 novel that carries the reputation of being a book that even King thought was quote-unquote too scary. Is that distinction accurate? We'll discuss. But first, I'd like to take a quick moment to urge you to please leave us a review on iTunes if you haven't yet. It really helps people discover the podcast, and it makes us feel warm and fuzzy inside. And we need that after reading this book. Now, why don't we all go around, introduce ourselves, and discuss a little bit about our history with the book. Who's sitting across from me?
That would be Michael Rachel Rothman. Editor-in-Chief of Consequence of Sound. I am thrilled to be talking about this book. I love this book. This is my favorite Stephen King book. Spoilers about my final thoughts here, but I'm just going all out. I'm laying the hammer down. Or is there any pun I could put on this? I don't know.
Laying the shovel down.
Laying the spade
I'm putting it all
down
in the grave.
He's building the cairn.
I'm building the cairn.
Early.
But I absolutely love this book. I looked forward to covering this book from the beginning. So
Cool. Well, how did you first encounter it?
I actually first encountered this book because the film was one of the first things I ever saw involving Stephen King from the poster itself. Just, what's his name? Pascal's eye. Paxcal. Are we calling it Paxcal or Pascal?
Yeah.
We're going to go with Ellie's version?
Either, it's a win-win.
It is a win-win. But his eye was so menacing, and I remember seeing it at all the movie stores, and there was a place called All Books and Records near my house that had the poster just plastered across the front door, and it always spooked the hell out of me, especially with the cat. There's just something stark about the grays and the whites. So I was really interested, and when I finally saw the film, it terrified me to death. I mean, I was so young. I was probably about just maybe even younger than Ellie's age, probably 9 or 8 when I saw this film, maybe even younger. And then I finally read the book in college, early college, when I was in Tallahassee, which for some reason really hit hard for me because I just feel like the Tallahassee environment spoke to the sort of Maine climate in a weird way. It was my first time really experiencing different seasons because I'm from South Florida. And it felt like the right place to read it. And then when I read it again in Chicago, I don't know, 5 or 6 years later. And then I read it again for this podcast. So this is the third time I'm reading this book.
Nice.
Yeah.
3 is the magic number.
3 is the magic number.
And who's sitting next to you?
This is Mel Orinko Castle.
Ooh.
This book vies for 2 other books with maybe being the first Stephen King book I've read. I don't actually know which one was first. It's either this, The Shining, or it. But I have very vivid memories in middle school or high school of having this very tattered copy that I brought with me today. I don't even know where I got it. I know I didn't buy it. I didn't go out and buy it, so it must have been discovered somewhere. And it scared me so badly that there's this yowling cat on the cover, and I remember every night staying up super late reading it and then trying to go to bed, turning the light back on when I couldn't sleep, and turning the book over so that I couldn't see the cat on the bed. I was that scared. I thought, Zelda was going to come out of my closet. I was scared of cats in general for a while. It's also my favorite Stephen King book. It's probably tied with it for my favorite Stephen King book.
Nice.
So I love it to death. I had never seen the movie, which is interesting that you saw the movie first.
Yeah, and like you, I actually was scared of the book. I was more scared of the book than the movie at that point because I knew the movie was so terrifying to me that I was like, oh my gosh, if I go into this book, it's going to be even worse because it's all going to be in my imagination. So, yeah, I put it off. I actually read multiple Stephen King books before this one, even though I loved the movie so much and it got me into it, which is weird. I still don't know why that was. I must have just been afraid of the book. Yeah. I really do.
And they're very different. I mean, that we'll get into that later. But I feel like I didn't appreciate the full horror of it. I was scared by the things that would scare a middle schooler when I first read it, but rereading it many, many times since then, I think my latest reread before this one for the podcast, which was probably a year ago, was when I was fully struck by why Stephen King thinks he went too far with this book. Because now I could appreciate what it would feel like a little bit better. Obviously, I'm not a parent, but I could appreciate the sense of loss and how this book is about deeper themes than just like a cat back from the dead. So my view on this book has evolved in a very positive way, and I just think it's a treasure.
Yeah. And then who is sitting next to me?
I am Justin, the great and terrible Gerber. And before I go any, I'm a senior writer, Consequence of Sound. But before I go any further, I can't believe neither of you used the nickname Micmac for your, like Mike Micmac, Mel Micmac. And why is it Mac here?
I know.
Why is it Micmac Gerber?
Well, Mac already claimed it.
Oh, maybe he'll do
Also,
that.
rather not appropriate a tribe name.
That's true. Well, is that why King found this book to be problematic? I first was introduced to this book, much like Mike, through the film that came out for years, actually. I'd seen the film several times before I read the book. I read the book during my first King phase, which was middle school. And it was one of the earlier books I read, maybe, again, like my second or third King book. And looking back now, I would assume the things that stuck out to me were the Zelda scenes, obviously everything with Gage near the end of the book, especially. But again, towards the end of the book, the things that resonated with me this time was the loss of Gage and everything that followed after that. Again, as an adult and as a father of two, I really connected to this. I'm not a father.
Justin has no children.
Before everybody's, oh, he's a father.
Justin's fathered multiple children.
Justin's been turned down by every adoption agency he pursues.
I always come with my copy of Pet Sematary, and they say, I don't think so, Justin.
Nope, not happening.
There's a difference between being a father and being a dad.
Or being a daddy.
Or being a blood father and then being a real father. You know, there's a difference.
Or blood meridian.
Okay. Long story short, I've read this book this is actually my third time as well, reading Pet Sematary. I still love it. I think we're all on the same page here that we all pretty much just love this book.
Yeah, so if you've come for a hate fest, you ain't going to find it.
There's no contrarian to be found here. That'll be in a future Pet Sematary movie episode.
We'll talk about the movie later on, but just because we were first introduced to the story through the movie, don't you remember the poster just being like almost everywhere and just kind of being haunted by it?
Not only I remember movie theaters, obviously, and then whatever your local video store was. I feel like it was there for years.
It was hanging forever.
Whatever video shop you walked into.
What year did it come out?
89?
89. Yeah.
It's the year I was born. I don't remember it.
So it was like the rise.
It
was like the rise of the movie store too. So it was like it really was just prevalent. But it's so funny is in Wayne's World, Cassandra actually has the poster in her wall, and that scene used to scare me as a kid, just because I would see.
Wait, Cassandra has Pet Sematary on her wall?
Yeah,
That's wild.
It's hanging in the back.
Paramount Pictures.
It's true.
Yeah, they were like, what do we got in storage?
We got Pet Sematary 2. We got Raiders of the Lost Ark.
There's a great history of Paramount films to be mined and promoted in other films, but
I love this book. It's my third read on it too, which is kind of wild that we've all read it that many times. But I think this was probably the sixth or seventh, like maybe fifth, sixth or seventh King book that I read. I was like, it's like when I really fell headfirst into my fandom. Like, because my first three that I read by him were The Stand, or first four was like The Stand, Christine, The Shining, and The Dead Zone were the first four I read. I always remember that. And then I think very soon after, I can't remember where I got my copy. I had that one from the 80s with that was like black and red and all like illustrated. And oh yeah, you have that one. Which edition is that?
That's the Signet
edition.
Signet paperback.
Yeah, Mike, that's the first copy I read too. Growing up.
Yeah, and that was like a very iconic cover to me. I think it freaked me out in the same way that Mel's did. Although Mel has a later edition. Which one do you have?
This is Pocket Books 2001.
Ah, gotcha. Yeah, I had that other one, and I think I took it from somebody. Like it was one of those, like maybe my aunt had a copy of it, and I asked if I could have it, and they let me have it, and I read it that way. And I remember being very struck, and I really liked it. But when at the age that I read it, which was probably 8th grade, 9th grade, something like that, I just wasn't, like Mel said, like I wasn't connected to the themes as much. Like I was in it for the horror, and I was in it for the spooky shit. But the depth of it, and like the sort of
sadness,
like the melancholy, and well, not even melancholy, just the tragedy of it. Like it wasn't something that struck me until I read it as an adult. And like Mel said, it really evolves well. because this is my third read of it, and it was my favorite read of it, and it's my because I read it for the second time in college, I think, maybe sometime after college. It was just a book that when I think of something that really scared me, because like even King, like not a lot of the books I can say really scared me like to the bone, and this is one that I always turn to. And when people ask me what are the best Stephen King books, I often say this and It, not just because I love them, but because they're the ones I remember being the scariest. Like I think like I was talking to my wife about King, like the different aspects of it. And I'm like, a lot of people would say, because Jen was like, so do people consider like widely to be that Pet Sematary is the best Stephen King book? And I'm like, well, I don't think that I know it was a mega hit when it came out, but I don't think that kind of thought that it's one of the best of his books that sort of feels like a modern thought to me, like a recent thought. But it's like, I was like, a lot of people would probably cite some of his more either iconic ones like The Shining or Carrie, or they would cite some of the more emotional ones like The Green Mile or something like that.
But Insomnia.
But you mentioned tragedy, and I think tragedy is one of the reasons why it so resonates with the readers so much. I mean, I had texted everyone yesterday that it's on the third reread, it made me feel like I was actually reading a Shakespeare play.
Yeah.
Just the way that everything kind of crisscrosses and there's just a futility to everything.
Yeah.
That, there's a hopefulness to a lot of the activities that everyone's going and where they're, the trajectories that everyone's on. But you also know that it's just not going to work. Like there's that feeling that you get when you read like Hamlet or Romeo and Juliet, especially just knowing that it's a tragedy. You know where it's going to end, and you know that it's not going to end well.
Yeah.
And you know that any of the efforts that any of the characters have, like Benvolio, who has who delivers a letter, I think, in Romeo and Juliet, and misses out, just totally misses Romeo before we get to. I'm also basing that on Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet, by the way.
That's Romeo plus Juliet.
With Paul Rudd?
Paul Rudd is in that as Prince. Love Paul Rudd, young Paul Rudd too. But with this, all the characters are on a similar arc where you just know that it's kind of futile. Like, I mean, it's sad, and that sort of depth to their actions that you spoke about before makes it that much more compelling at the end, because you're just like, it just sticks with you. It sticks with you in the same way that grief sticks with Lewis when he's wandering around and looking at the different different parts of the living room and just thinking like, oh God, this is where we celebrated Christmas. This is where we had our family things. You kind of feel the same way towards the end of this book. There's a weight that you have that I don't think you traditionally have at the end of a lot of Stephen King books. And I think that's why maybe it impacted me at a young age, or all of us at the time.
I get frustrated when I see threads where people ask, what is a good introductory book to Stephen King? And people say Pet Sematary. I don't think you should start reading Stephen King with Pet Sematary.
I feel like I've made that recommendation before.
I feel like people love it so much that they're like, yeah, this is like, you should start with it because it's so good and I love it. But I feel like it's such a deep and tragic book, as Mike was saying. And it's not super typical of him.
Right.
I feel like
that.
it's not a good one to get a good impression of what King is all about. It's sort of this like flash in the night that was very successful for me anyway.
What I would say though, because I have made that recommendation in prior years, I think probably in the past year maybe, is that it is terrifying. So if those that are looking to Stephen King for horror per se, I would recommend that. But I agree, like we're reading this third time. It did occur to me that like this is very unconventional compared to a lot of his other works, and he's very short and terse in a lot of ways, and I say this all the time, but it's almost very Hemingway-esque with some of his sentence structures that aren't very traditional to his previous books before this. So yeah, I don't know if it is a great introductory book for.
We should
for
actually
King,
make a recommendation list. Like,
we should.
If you're looking for horror,
Yeah.
looking for. Blah, blah,
I mean,
blah.
if you want to be genuinely frightened out of your mind, this is the book.
But
I don't even think it comes close to being this frightening, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and I mean, like I was saying this to my wife, it just, there's a lot of, like every King book, there's always at least a relationship that comes out intact, something that comes out stronger. There's always some little level of hope, even if things seem dire at the end. There is a glimmer of hope. There is a strengthened relationship. There is a strengthened bond. There's something that is hopeful. And King has said the reason he doesn't really like this book is because it feels futile. Like there is the sense that, spoiler alert, for the book that we're about to discuss in deep detail, it's like pretty much, 90% of the cast is dead by the end of
Well,
this.
this is the quote that he says. he says that it just spirals down into darkness. It seems to be saying that nothing works and nothing is worth it. And I don't really believe that.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that is, and we'll talk about that with the history of the book, but I think that's very emblematic of where he was at the time when he was writing this. I think that you can pretty much marry Lewis's arc with an addiction narrative also, because there is, I mean, obviously the book is centered on grief, but I think addiction and grief are sometimes they kind of coalesce or they coexist together.
Yeah.
And I saw a lot of sections in this book where I can see even just like the inner monologue that Lewis has that speaks to maybe what King was going through when he was maybe going through his own sort of addictions.
Well, yeah, like when you say, and we'll talk about this more later, but I can see what you're saying. Just like put a pin in it, like, because even just the self-justification, like the sense that telling yourself that you are in complete control of a situation when you absolutely are not.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting idea. Before we discuss the history of the book, why don't we read a synopsis, read what we have in our editions here. Mel, did you want to read from the, what do you got?
The 2001 pocketbook printing. It opens with the quote, "Sometimes dead is better." When the Creeds move into a beautiful old house in rural Maine, it all seems too good to be true. Physician father, beautiful wife, charming little daughter, adorable infant son, and now an idyllic home. As a family, they've got it all, right down to the friendly cat. But the nearby woods hide a blood-chilling truth, more terrifying than death itself, and hideously more powerful. Pet Sematary.
I like that.
Short and sweet.
Mike, do you want to read yours?
Yeah, mine's very old. It's from the Signet Classic. And I don't even know if Classic's in there. I just made that up. But it's just Signet, paperback, got some great cat action on the front. And Lewis is holding Gage heading into the cemetery. Here we go. The Creeds, an ideal family, physician father, beautiful wife, charming little daughter, adorable infant son, close, loving, wonderfully alive. When they found that old house and enchanting grounds in rural Maine, it seemed too good to be true. It was. For the truth was blood-chilling, something more horrifying than death itself, and hideously more powerful. Pet Sematary.
So, Justin, did you have one you wanted to read?
I do.
Okay, we're going to hear that one.
This is from the most recent paperback editions from Simon & Schuster. Of course, they butchered the Christine edition, not having any lyrics from songs throughout the entire book. Also, this edition makes reference to the epic series The Dark Tower, and it's the basis for a major motion picture from Sony. So that will forever be associated with that as well. And on the back, it starts off with the quote, "Sometimes death is better," much like, I'm sure, every other edition of Pet Sematary. When Dr. Lewis Creed takes a new job and moves his family to the rural town of Ludlow, Maine, this new beginning seems too good to be true. Yet despite Ludlow's tranquility, there's an undercurrent of danger that exists here. Those trucks on the road outside the Creed's beautiful old home travel by just a little too quickly, for one thing, as evidenced by the makeshift pet cemetery out back in the nearby woods. Then there are the warnings to Lewis, both real and from the depths of his nightmares, that he should not venture beyond the borders of this little graveyard. A bone-chilling truth is hidden there, one more terrifying than death itself, and hideously more powerful. An ominous fate befalls anyone who dares tamper with this forbidden place, as Lewis is about to discover for himself. Ooh.
And then mine just says, "Kitty go bad."
Cat go bad, mean cat.
So now that we have the synopsis down, let's talk about the history a little bit, because there's some interesting stuff here, and it comes from a real place, probably more so than a lot of King books do. Like, there's a lot that mirrors his own life here, which is pretty terrifying.
Well, he wrote it from February 1979 to December 1982.
Yeah.
It's a long
that's a long process. Yeah. And I mean, I wonder how much of that is because it was published in 1983. And so the question is, like, does that encompass, like, him finishing it, putting it in a drawer, and then revisiting it to edit it, or,
I think that's the case.
Yeah.
I think he had it in the drawer for years and then came back to it in 82, finished it off.
Yeah, and like, well, there's a lot.
The history makes it sound like that.
But it wasn't even published until like November 1983.
Yeah.
So it's late into...
Yeah. So basically, let's kind of just break down the history pretty quickly. So in 1979, King was serving as a writer in residence at the University of Maine at Orono. Hope I'm saying that right. And he was living in a rented house in Orrington. You could see where he got Orinco trucks from. But, basically, he was living on this highway, and these massive trucks were speeding by all the time. And he had an elderly surly neighbor who warned him keep the cats and the kids away from the road. And unfortunately, their cat Smucky, who actually cameos in the book, was obedient. Smucky got in the road, died, and his daughter Naomi's reaction was very similar to Ellie's in the book. Cried and basically said, God can have any cat he wants. Why is God taking my cat? All that stuff was something that he really struggled with. And he also had these fears about, his son getting in the road. And then one day Owen, his youngest son at the time, ran into the road, much like Gage. And then King was actually able to grab him and save him, which, is not the case in the book. And I think that's why that section has such like a resonant, like just the details, like grabbing the back of the jacket or whatever. It's like, because clearly that's something he lived.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the intimate details in this book are what really make it that much more affecting.
Yeah.
He also, according to StephenKing.com, this is really eerie. He dreamt of a reanimated corpse walking up and down the road outside of the house, and he began to think about funerals and the modern customs surrounding death and burial. Now, I've also read in other places online that he became almost like Michael Mann about the details for burial and funeral services and whatnot, and really did some deep research on the process.
Well, clearly, the exhumation when he digs up Gage, the detail in that, and I was because the
differences between the lining,
that's the kind of stuff that drives me crazy about King sometimes, is he gets so caught up in the minutia of something, but in this case, it felt really well researched in a good way, and it felt really necessary to the world.
Do you guys have the introduction by him in your editions? I know Mike wouldn't probably.
I do.
No,
I do.
Yeah. So he talks about everything Randall's saying and about how he felt like he might have gone too far with this book. And reading that as a middle schooler, you just kind of get even more hype when you read this introduction that's almost cautioning you against reading the book from the author himself.
He even says, I've never been sorry that I did the book, although in many ways I still find it distressing and problematic.
Yeah, and I think that it's interesting that because I think when Doubleday published it, and we'll get into the whole publishing kerfluffle, which is I mean, in a way, it sounded like it was a pain in the ass for King, but hey, good for us because he published the book. Mm-hmm. But it's interesting because they kind of adopted that narrative of the book that he thought was too scary to put out, and they really pushed that in the marketing,
which is smart.
So smart.
It's it's genius.
Yeah, and whereas King though, he does consider it to be but his thing is he's not like this is too scary to release. It's more like I just don't like I find this too ugly in a lot of ways. Awful is a word he uses a lot. He even says Tabby. In the introduction, he says that she found it awful, but really good. She said it was too good not to publish, there's a lot of conflicting narratives on there about, he sent the book to Peter Straub when he finished it, and Peter Straub said it was, not enjoyable and not good, and then Tabby also didn't like it.
But it's almost like he was able to kind of exhume his sort of Spielbergian qualities a little bit and just kind of be really dark and entrenched in just some really nihilistic sort of fates, which I like, and I think it serves this book better than had there been any sort of sliver of hope, because again, it goes back into that whole Shakespearean tragedy thing that I really love about this book. But if you look at even the influences, I mean, obviously Nathaniel Hawthorne was a huge influence on this book, and the idea of just having this family at the edge of the woods, something in the woods that's going to attack this family, the outsider influence, and the consequences that come from that. I mean, Hawthorne is incredibly unforgivable. I mean, it's very, very harsh and dark with his writing. And then you also think about W.W. Jacobs' The Monkey's Paw, also the EC Comics stuff that also he was kind of gearing towards in that with the gruesomeness of it. There is that sort of unforgiving quality to him that I appreciate that he indulged in it, because I don't think that I could have handled this. Everything comes together. He rides off with Ellie at the end. No, this is a story that absolutely succeeds on Lewis just crumbling and having a downward spiral. It feels like doom falls on this book the moment the cat dies. Yeah. Basically. The second they arrive.
Yeah.
Think about the chaos of the family that when they first get in, that chaos never really leaves.
Right.
And we talk about on the Cujo episode, you were dissatisfied with that ending, and I get so many echoes of Cujo in this, and it kind of feels like Cujo didn't purge the impulse to really go bleak in him, even though I really enjoyed the bleakness of Cujo and how the small child actually does die at the end. Like you were saying, the relationship between the parents actually ends up being okay, or at least they're going to work on it. But in this one, we get another animal story that just turns, totally towards darkness.
Yeah.
Well, I think going back to what Mike was saying, if every Stephen King book was nihilistic, every single one of them had an extreme downbeat ending, then maybe this wouldn't work as well. But this is truly the exception to the rule at this point in his career, at least. He gets a little nihilistic as recently as a book called Revival a couple of years ago. It's pretty grim.
Well, let's think about the fates of the recent books before this. I guess Christine's somewhat nihilistic in a way because everyone pretty much
is gonna,
they're gonna die, and the Dead Zone is slightly optimistic.
I think there's something somewhat sweet about the ending.
Yeah.
As tragic as the Dead Zone is, it's a happy ending.
Yeah, it's a happy ending in Dead Zone.
You think about it.
The fates for the body. It's not bad. Shawshank's a great ending.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, those were
Apt
written.
Pupil is pretty.
That is very nihilistic.
Yeah, that's some nihilistic
But in a different way.
Yeah.
Well, I think the key here.
Cycle of the Werewolf.
I think the key here is the idea is how much children are, because I think King is a very it's because he has however many kids, 3 kids, 3 or 4.
I think it's 3.
Yeah. Well, I know there's Naomi, Joe, and then Owen. I don't know if there's another.
That's it.
But so I think that, especially when he was writing this book, they were it was Gage's and Ellie's age. He was writing kids in this book that were those own ages, and he was recreating actual conversations about death he was having with his kids. And he's writing about a near-death experience with his son. He's writing about this dead cat. He's writing about these fears, and this weight of responsibility that comes with being a parent, and maybe the sense that he felt like he wasn't being a good enough parent. And I think that he probably tapped into anxieties of parenting with this book. And that's what I appreciate as I've gotten older. Not that I have kids. None of us have kids, so I feel like we can't relate in that way. In the sense that the weight of responsibility that comes with children and being responsible for a life. And if you just think about what happens to Gage in this story, he has a 2-year-old get mowed down by a truck, dragged, dug up from its grave, and then it fucking eats his mother. It's a fucking cannibal. It's so pitch black.
I mean, I see this as the sister book for The Shining. And I feel like The Shining was born out of that, his initial anxieties of being a parent.
Yeah.
'Cause I think that was around the time that Joe was
young, yeah.
And he was also going through some problems himself, except that obviously there's a redemptive ending to The Shining, and that the mother and the son triumph, and even the father has some sort of revelation at the end before the boiler goes off. So I feel like this is basically the yang, that book's yin, or the yin of the yang.
This is basically what if Jack doesn't have the realization and the explosion kills everybody.
Yeah. Exactly.
I feel like we're not talking about the history anymore.
I know. I feel like it's all, in a way though, I think we are, just because I think the context of coming into where he was at the time. So the history, to me, a lot of it is about his own reaction to the book. And I feel like we're kind of pontificating a little bit about
where everything is sourcing in.
Yeah. I don't think King thinks it's not a well-written book or whatever. I think he's probably proud of the text. I just think that he feels like he maybe betrayed his own sense of what he values in an author, that an author should create a story that, represents their worldview. And I think that he really is trying, he tries to resist nihilism or despair or bleakness a lot with his writing. And here he just fully indulges in it. And when kids are sort of at stake, when children are at stake and he's dealing with these issues of parenting, it just to me feels like all of that feeds into his own reaction to the book.
But I think he does agree with the message, quote unquote, of the book. He says he does. It's just a very hard one to swallow.
Well, the way he frames it in the end of the introduction, I think he kind of finds a way to justify it in a way that resonates as at least not as despairing, because he says that lesson should suggest that in the end we can only find peace in our human lives by accepting the will of the universe. That may sound like corny new age crap, but the alternative looks to me like a darkness too awful for such mortal creatures as us to bear.
Yeah, no, it's I mean, when death and grief come in, that's why, the whole thing with Lewis kind of biting his thumb at the human customs at the funeral. It's just all these little customary things we do, like meeting for lunch or, sending our condolences, and all. It's just so meaningless in the realm of the universe. I mean, at that point, Lewis becomes absolutely nihilistic, and he loses his soul because the reality of reality sinks in. And I think that's a hard truth to swallow sometimes for a lot of people when they realize the comforts that you actually have in your own reality aren't actually, they're just cushions basically to the actual things that are going to come and harm you, that are out of your control. I think this book is really a sponge for everything that he was going through at that time. He was, like you mentioned, he was living in a different area. He was studying at the University of Orrinco,
University of Maine.
Yeah,
He was going to be a truck driver.
he was going to be a truck driver. He was in Orrington. He had this new family because the kids were growing up, and even just the research that he did for this, going into the funeral parlors, even the Micmac burial grounds. I mean, in an article that I looked up online, this great Stephen King reread by Grady Hendrix, he talks about how the Micmacs were actually like a big deal. In the early
at that
80s.
time. Yeah.
And like in 1980, like the United States government had they passed the Maine Indian Claims Settlement, which recognized the ownership of Maine lands by Native Americans and gave two recognized tribes $81 million so that they can buy back their land. And I think that he saw these pieces. You could just see him just absorbing all this stuff when you actually look at all the context of all this, where this was being written. It really is just a sponge of literally everything that he was feeling and going through. So maybe part of the reason why King doesn't like this book, which I don't even know if he has those feelings towards this book anymore, but maybe it's because that was a really hard time for him in his life, and it's one of those echoes that you don't want to revisit.
Yeah.
Well, it's the conflicting thought, because in the new introduction that we have, he also says it's the most frightening book he's ever written.
Yeah, I mean,
it's one of those things like where I love Requiem for a Dream, for example. Mm-hmm. I don't like watching it.
No,
every year.
of course not.
It's not a pleasant experience.
When he came to Florida State University back in 2006, maybe he was actually previewing Doom McKee at the time, but I came up and I brought my first edition paperback and I said, "Hey, thanks for the nightmares," like an idiot. But the thing is that when he held the book, he looked at it and he's like, "Oh God, this is a scary one." And it was just an interesting reaction. Like, it didn't feel like one of those like fake sort of things that he says to everyone, but maybe it does really haunt him. I don't know. Again, that's such a stupid anecdote, but it's
not
something I thought
stupid.
about.
But just think about, like you're all saying, if this is his experience of putting together kind of his worst and very real fear because the situation almost happened to him, so he writes about it but creates the enemy of that fear, which has to be worse than the fear itself, right? Which is the possibility of combating that fear with something that ends up being unnatural, an abomination.
Yeah.
And you have to teach yourself that lesson that fear is something you have to live with.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah,
totally.
I have this quote, and then we'll talk about the publishing issues and kind of what led to it being published. But I was reading this interview that he did in the Paris Review in, I believe, 2000, and he talked pretty in depth about, not in depth, but he kind of talked about the history of Pet Sematary, and then he gave this quote, which I thought was really interesting. He said, "And then you say to yourself, you have to go a little bit further. If you're going to take on this grieving process, what happens when you lose a kid? You ought to go all the way through it." And I did. I'm proud of that because I followed it all the way through. But it was so gruesome by the end of it and so awful. I mean, there's no hope for anybody at the end of that book. Usually I give my drafts to my wife, Tabby, to read, but I didn't give it to her. When I finished, I put it in the desk and I just left it there. I worked on Christine, which I liked a lot better, and which was published before Pet Sematary. It's interesting to think of him like that he liked Christine so much more, and maybe it's because it was such it was so detached from reality.
Fun.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a killer
carnage
car.
candy.
Yeah, it's like, and I think that's the thing, was he wanted to work on something that maybe he didn't have a lot of investment in personally, And I think Christine is kind of a book that it's kind of like, what if a car came to life and killed people?
And also, most of the people that die in Christine, if not all, are awful people.
Yeah, they're
Exactly.
all shitty people.
Yeah.
Except for, of course, Junkins. I love Junkins.
Yeah, they're all
And
shitters.
Michael. Poor Michael.
But so basically what happened with, there was a really great, this has been chronicled quite a bit, but I read that Tor reread as well, the Grady Hendrix one, and that goes pretty deep into the publishing woes. But basically he had a contractual obligation with Doubleday.
Well, it dates back like 10 years before the actual publishing, because it was the first deal that he did with Doubleday.
Yeah.
And then they came a calling because he made more money, I
feel
think.
like every other book episode, there's some issue with the publisher. You
Yeah.
noticed that over the years with him? And like Viking and everything else that we talked about earlier on?
Let's just say he's not having problems with the publishers anymore.
He just says, I owed them a final novel before accounts could be closed completely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was like they...
Here, take this class.
They
It had something to do with taxes, though, because they had, I guess, leftover for the budget, and it was going to go back to the author, or maybe...
Yeah.
And they were like, hey, look, we got to get this book out. And
Yeah, I think it was
they
something
didn't-
like King ended up being too successful for like
Yeah.
that publisher, because if they were going to pay out all that they owed him, then they were going to go bankrupt.
Yeah.
And he was basically like, I need that money,
Yeah.
guys, you know? And so they were like, well, you need to give us another book. I think the implication was like, you need to give us another book that's going to make the money that we can pay you. Like, and so, and so they were really invested in that. But King said in an interview, he said, if I had my way about it, I still would not have published Pet Sematary. I don't like it. It's a terrible book, not in terms of the writing, but then you had quoted this earlier. It just spirals down into darkness. It seems to be saying that nothing works and nothing is worth it, and I don't really believe that.
obviously there was some differences with what was going on with the publishers and then what was also going on thematically. So I think
What's just funny about this whole history of this book is, as much as he has despised it during certain times, especially I'm assuming at the very least in the 80s, he still wrote the screen adaptation. You know,
Yeah.
it's like
I'm sure the
he
quote
wanted to get rid
about
of it altogether.
I'm sure the quote about not publishing it was probably closer to the publication date.
Yeah, I would assume
because
so.
I think he's probably warmed up to it over time, because I don't think he hates it nearly as much now. And I kind of I love that anecdote you told Mike, just like the idea of him looking at it and just saying, "Oh, this is a scary one." Like for some reason that just really resonated.
Well, also, it sounds like he sort of blocked it from his mind
Yeah.
and is just remembering
There's
how
probably a lot
bleak
of
it is when
pain.
you hand it to him.
And I imagine that this whole publishing thing with Doubleday was probably really painful too. I mean, those are working relationships, and if they've gone sour like the land, you know, it's
Yeah,
like
it's true.
that's something that I think was probably painful for him in a lot of ways. So yeah, but
I also want to say historically, let's not forget, and this is a theory that I have, and it's, you could call this bullshit, whatever,
Room
but
237.
this is a Room 237 theory of mine. I feel when he saw Evil Dead at Cannes Film Festival in 1982.
did he say he saw it there?
Oh yeah, he saw.
Oh,
He's the reason why the movie
Yeah,
became
that's right.
huge.
Oh,
He wrote the review out of there. Granted, again, he didn't finish this book until the end of 1982.
Yeah.
And just reading the third act, even just various aspects of the book in general, it is so dark and twisted and macabre, similar to Sam Raimi's movie, that I wonder if he saw that film. And just even thinking of it as like if you think of it musically, when musicians find certain acts and they're like, oh God, this is going to be the next thing, I got to be ahead of the curve. A part of me wonders with things that were going on with, like we were watching with the Video Nasties, in the documentary that's available on Shudder, they talk about all the banned movies in the UK. That was happening around this time. I do wonder if King, when he saw Evil Dead, saw, I have to get really dark. And it's the same thing. A lot of horror directors were having the same problem. I mean, if you look back at Halloween 2, which also came out, in 1981, Carpenter went all in on the violence in that part. That was actually his decision. It was not Rick Rosenthal's. He actually wanted to be more in the shadows. So I think a lot of the old guard, and they weren't even that old, they were just really kind of starting.
Younger than me.
Yeah, exactly. I think maybe there's an argument to be made that King felt that he had to go a little darker and a little wilder, because you read that third act and then like with the woods cackling and all this
Love
other
it.
stuff, it is so intrinsically tied to Evil Dead. Just
Yeah.
that whole the whole elemental nature of it against the man versus nature aspect.
Yeah.
That, I mean, clearly Evil Dead affected him. He said it was one of the most frightening films he's seen. He was he was leading the charge for that film, and then he finishes this book in like late 82. And then also, fun fact, Bruce Campbell was one of the first choices to play Louis Creed back when the film was starting to film in like 88 or 87. I think it was 88. I don't know. Maybe there's something to be said there.
Either that or it really just affirmed that he was doing the right thing.
It could
if
be,
he had
yeah.
had the
Yeah.
idea initially. I mean, either way, I don't think you can disconnect the two, like you're
Yeah.
saying.
I mean, I
That's
think
not,
there's
that's
something
not
to
a
be-
crazy theory at all. I don't think it's a crazy theory.
So yeah, I mean, so pretty complicated history, and like we said, it was published as a way to end a deal with Doubleday, and there's a chance that we never would have seen it.
But I love those type of backstories for the things. I mean, you read about the backstories for some of the greatest moments in pop culture, and they usually involve chaos.
Yeah.
They usually involve some unlikeliness to it. And I mean, you can go to like Talking Heads Once in a Lifetime, which is one of the greatest songs of all time. That song is just insane. Like the way that was constructed. Even most of the Beach Boys songs, the films in the past that you look at their history and you're like, how the hell did this ever happen? And it did. It just worked. And you just have to kind of, blame it on chaos sometimes. And I feel like that is kind of part of this. It's these elements that were just working against each other, but somehow it worked. And I don't know, we're given this fucking awesome book.
Yeah, it just makes me wonder about the books because he had that tweet recently where he mentioned that he has a few scripts gathering dust, in drawers, and it just makes me, or not scripts, transcripts, whatever.
Manuscripts.
Manuscripts.
Something to do with the script.
Prescriptions.
I think he's actually history shows that he's his worst editor, actually.
Yeah.
And that it's really Tabby that is pretty much his greatest editor. And I feel like he's the exception where the stuff that we find in the vaults are going to be fucking phenomenal.
Well,
I mean, just historically for King has
And in
been
terms
really
of time,
great.
in terms of worrying, because obviously Tabby's around his age. Joe Hill's also become quite the editor for him, for instance, 11/22/63.
Yeah.
So I feel like in the year, we're being really morbid thinking about, after King dies.
Hey,
where
if
did he
there's
get all
any
this
book
material?
to think about that sort of more
That's right.
about-
You know what? This is the perfect
Hey,
one.
it doesn't matter because I'm taking King's body to Ludlow right after he dies, and
He's just be walking up and down
You
the
and probably
streets
6
of
other
Bangor.
yahoos
Yeah,
that
right?
all have the same idea.
be like, get away from me! He's my body. He's mine.
Speaking of that dream he had, the nightmare about the reanimated corpse walking around.
It's terrifying.
And he captures it so well with Timmy Baterman, like in the dream.
One of my favorite cemetery moments.
So
my God.
freaky.
Can't
And we'll
wait to
get
talk
there.
about that.
Yeah.
So let's move on. Let's talk about the hook.
Yes. Don't you see? Don't you see how clear it all is? Not only can you see the future, I can change it. You can change it exactly.
So I think the hook here is resurrection. We get all these quotes about Lazarus leading into all these sections, which we'll talk about later. But in terms of hook, like what stands out to you? I mean, I guess for me, I think about this whole idea of like bringing something back from the dead.
Sure.
Yeah.
When we talk
Playing
about the
God.
hook, just real quick, a meta-analysis here.
Yeah.
Are we talking about the hook that gets readers to read, or are we talking about the themes that the book explores?
I think it's that gets the readers, like your base. What would you say this book is about now? Like that would be the hook to me.
Okay. The book
So-
is, I think that's both, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it
both.
encompasses
Yeah.
both, but I see what you're saying. I guess
Without getting deep is what I'm thinking of.
Yeah,
Like, what's the
sure.
initial hook before you get into the actual summary of the book?
Yeah, I guess that's a good point then. So then maybe it's maybe the hook is just death.
Sure.
Death,
That's
yeah.
what I would say.
Yeah.
True.
And also the unthinkable
Yeah.
nature of the death of a child.
This is the one about the animals and the humans coming back to life.
Yeah.
Is what you'd
This is
say.
the one with the cat. Is this the one with the cat?
I think there's a lot to be gleaned from this book.
Yeah, I mean, for me, what really resonates, and it's a theme that I love in anything, but the whole concept that things run their course, and to bring something back that is dead it will never ever be what it was that you wanted it to be.
It's basically a whole condemnation of nostalgia.
I was
Yeah.
just going to say that.
You know,
Yeah.
you could basically make that just with Judd himself, this old man that his crutch is the past, and he leans on these old stories.
Can't
and
go
you-
back.
And you can't go back. He's alone. I mean, he's
For me, it's really about death is a fluke force. The fact that it can hit at any time, and it can hit no matter what point you are in life. You could be a child, you could be a middle age, you could be an old woman, and it absolutely has no morals associated with it. And we all have to live with it in the room with us at every point in our lives. And there's a great monologue near the end of the book where he dreams about going to Disneyland with Gage, and that sums that whole theme up for me. And I also
That's
think
such a weird section.
I also think it's about, like you were saying earlier, kind of the mundane indignities of death that we don't examine. The physical nature, the visceral nature of what happens in the coffin that we don't feel comfortable facing, but that we do have to face. And nobody likes to talk about the reality of facing those things.
My simple bounce off would just be an additional theme would be acceptance
yeah, absolutely.
and how furious that can make you when you have to just accept the inevitable. And this is
also-
about people trying to avoid acceptance.
Well, what I love is the thing is though, the inevitability I think is a huge thing here, because the reason I say like the real doom sets in the moment like the cat dies and then Judd takes him to bury the cat, because once the door is opened, there is no way that you would ever consider, like, if you have a path where I can bring my son back and I don't know whether or not it will be a good or a bad thing, there is no way in hell that you would ever not explore that. Once that possibility exists, it will be tapped into. And that to me is like really scary. It's like, that's why it's, dead is better. And just the whole concept that ignorance is bliss in a lot of ways.
Well, that ignorance is something that, the Crandalls seem to be, they rebuff against it almost. I mean, like Judd refers to death as we knew it as a friend and an enemy.
Yeah.
I think that the reality that we're mortal is something that we try to ignore with the pleasantries of life. And that's why when they're at the funeral home and he's just like kind of looking around and being like, look how frivolous all this is. Like, oh yeah, lunch. Let's just get lunch, Steve. We'll get lunch. Like, what does that mean?
Norma also says in the exact same section, it's not such a bad idea to be on nodding acquaintance with it being death. I think that's super important.
I think there's also something about doubt. There's a lot of doubt in this, and
versus faith.
Yeah, I mean, versus anything, versus your own personal well-being. I mean, I think, like, for example, like the Lewis character is just awash in doubt, and a lot of it's from his father-in-law, Erwin Goldwyn, who never accepts him. Even the conception of Pascal, which seems to be his own sort of doubt, warning him against his own inhibitions or his own personal travails. Like, I mean, granted, you could basically look at it at a literal level and be like, oh no, there's a ghost of Victor Pascal right there. There's the ghost of the Wendigo. Or they could be manifestations of Lewis's own psyche.
If you break it down all the way to the base level, Pascal is the angel on his shoulder, and the Wendigo is the devil on his other shoulder.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess, and when you think about it, this is where the tragedy comes in a lot of ways too. This is a book where, unlike a lot of King books, it does feel as if Lewis is like a pawn, maybe like in a larger cosmic sort of battle between good and evil.
Sure.
In a lot of ways.
That's something I really want to talk about when we get to Lewis, because there might be some issues I've got with this particular.
Okay. I think it deals also with related to death being something that can happen at any time. Lewis is constantly thinking about the thin line between being sane and being insane, being acceptable in society and being unacceptable in society. And he's constantly saying, is this all it takes to turn me into this raving ghoul of a person?
Yeah.
Just the way that we, at any given moment, because of grief, because of loss, could become a totally different, corrupted version of ourselves that is just not acceptable in society.
Yeah, like I struggled. I feel like I struggled a little bit with the sense that the cemetery itself is pulling, like there's a spirit that's pulling them towards it. Because part of me is like I feel like you're taking away too much from too much. I feel like no, Lewis would do it. Like he doesn't need the force pulling him. But I'll just say, like, I think just in terms of themes though, that does speak to the larger idea that we are at the whim of the universe.
And I think that a lot of that has to do with fate.
And that's like the bone of tragedy.
And
like
that is
the spine
literally
of it.
every
And we'll
Shakespeare
have to talk
play.
about, do we think Lewis actually had free will? In
Yeah,
these
exactly.
moments?
Well, when you look at Judd, like how he's so emotional when he brings up the ideas and when he tries to tell Lewis to not do that with Gage, and he tells him the Baderman story, he like struggles so hard because he's so drawn to it. Like the weight and the pull of just, and I feel like to me, it's just, you open the door to resurrection or of bringing something back, and it is so hard to turn your back on it. And that's where Lewis is at, because he's just like, I have to try it. And he thinks that he can control that. He thinks that he can control the universe. I'll bring him back, and if it's not right, I'll end it, and everything will be fine.
Right.
Like it'll be like it never happened. I love that he uses the pet as a gateway, like, because
A gateway drug to resurrection.
well, in a way, it's just kind of like, losing a pet is really hard. Like, that's awful, and I would want to bring my pet back too. But losing a child is even harder, and I love that he uses the cat as sort of a stepping stone in terms of the things that we lose in life. But it can relate to so many things. I mean, this whole idea of, resurrecting a relationship that should really be dead. Like, even if it's just like you're in a relationship that's really unhealthy and it dies, but then the window opens to come back together, and of course you're going to do it. And then you regret it because it's spoiled, it's sour, it's not what it used to be. And that theme can resonate on so many levels. And that's one of the reasons I just love this book, because that's something that I struggled with and battled with my whole life, is the question of accepting when something is gone.
Not opening up the old wound.
Like try not to open the wounds and try not to like indulge in the possibilities of what ifs, like what ifs are always kind of, in a lot of ways, I think the bane of a lot of people's existences. They're the cause of a lot of depression. They're the cause of a lot of grief, is because we can't, like King says at the end of the introduction, it's like we in some ways do have to submit to the will of the universe.
You mentioned the cat being a gateway, And again, for me, I was familiar with the poster and the back of the VHS box growing up, so I knew that there was going to be some killer kid involved in this book, in the movie and obviously the book. So my question to you, Mel, is when you first read the book, did you assume that this was just going to be about a cat going crazy
I really
and killing
did.
people?
I can tell you the first time I read the kite scene that ends with engaged, did not know he had less than 2 months to live.
Yeah.
Floored me.
Yeah.
And I was young reading it too. I could not believe that was where the book was going. And then of course it becomes pretty natural to go there. But to like my middle school age mind, that was huge.
Oh, yeah.
And I think, Justin, you've mentioned the theme of like fatherhood and responsibility and like being the man of the family.
The masculinity of this is also...
And Goldman factors into that, too.
The soil of a man's heart is stonier. So I like the theme of he kind of twists it into this responsibility type thing. The cat is his now because he's the one who took it up there.
Yep.
He has to own the fact that it's hunting and killing these animals.
The animals are his now, too.
Yeah. And I just love when you were talking about how he examines it from every angle, the practicality of this decision to resurrect Gage. He thinks, well, if it's like this, I'll do this. And if it's like this, I'll do this. And he seems to have all his bases covered.
Yeah.
And it's so realistic. It's how you think of like, well, if I text the ex, here's what's going to happen.
Yep.
I'm either going to, they're either going to be like receptive. And if that's the case, I'll do this.
It definitely sounds like it's from the mind of a doctor, which he is in this book. So.
Yeah, if they're a dick, I will cut them off, and I have the power to cut them off, you know? It's like, but the thing is, we so rarely do have the power to resist that because the door has been open. And, you know, that to me just is such a resonant theme, and it really ripples throughout this book in so many interesting ways.
I mean, I think the hook can really be condensed into just little sections throughout the book, which I feel is less about the narrative and more about King just wrestling with his own demons and putting it out on the page and tying it to the themes of the book. I mean, there's one section that's on page 229. It's the beginning of chapter 36. And when I say page 229, I'm referring to the Signet edition.
The Signet Classics.
This is a great section.
See, this lines up with mine. 229, Mike?
229, yeah. See where it goes on
See
yours.
where we are in here.
But so this is, for me, I think this is another one of the hooks. King writes, "It's probably wrong to believe there can be any limit to the horror which the human mind can experience. On the contrary, it seems that some exponential effect begins to obtain as deeper and deeper darkness falls, as little as one may like to admit it. Human experience tends, in good many ways, to support the idea that when the nightmare grows black enough, horror spawns horror. One coincidental evil begets another, often more deliberate evils, until finally blackness seems to cover everything. And the most terrifying question of all may be just how much horror the human mind can stand and still maintain a wakeful, staring, unrelenting sanity. That such events have their own Rube Goldberg absurdity goes almost without saying. At some point, it all starts to become rather funny. That may be the point at which sanity begins either to save itself or to buckle and break down. That point at which one's sense of humor begins to reassert itself." He's not just talking about cats coming back to life and people dying horrifically. He's talking about the actual existence itself, which is, I don't know, I just thought that pretty much encapsulated the feeling of the book. And maybe he's wrestling with his own demons about his own mortality, the grief of possibly losing his family, or even the idea that he's made a career of finding the worst things and the scariest things to talk about. And here he is writing his scariest book. I think there's a lot to glean from that. And there's nuggets like that throughout this entire book. And they're like almost like little mini essays that just happen to tie with the narrative.
Yeah.
And for me, I loved those sections the most out of this book. But again, yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot to take from that one particular section. I almost look at it as like the central hook.
My
It's
page
everywhere in the
229,
book.
for the record, is just Gage vomiting. And,
Oh,
Cool. Pretty.
yeah. Pretty
That's everywhere throughout the book. And one of my favorite examples that stuck with me as a child reading it was when Pascal comes in and everything's chaos and he remembers the Sendak line from Where the Wild Things
Yes.
Are.
Yeah.
Let the wild rumpus start. That ruined Where the Wild Things Are for me as a child. Because now when anything goes wrong, I literally have that thought in my head. Like, let the wild rumpus start. Hey ho, let's go.
Yeah.
And I think that's a King commonality too. Like
Yeah.
so much is like, well, what can you do? I guess it's almost kind of funny in a way, and it's terrifying.
in horror movies, they always have people scream. But in reality, when something really terrifying happens, sometimes you really do laugh.
Oh, yeah.
You're just like,
Although there are a couple
You know?
moments in this book where he does flat out scream.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just, oof,
Yeah.
where he has to let it out.
yeah.
I scream in the movie when he bonks his head.
Well, that's the sandwich,
It's a
right?
visceral reaction.
You're scared. You're truly scared, and you laugh a little bit to diffuse. The next layer of the sandwich is you scream because it's so fucking scary. The laugh isn't going to do it. And the next level is insane laughter because it's too much to take.
Or when you
That's
ball yourself
the laugh,
up in the
scream,
corner
laugh
and
sandwich of fear.
put your thumb in your mouth.
Yeah, that was, oh my God.
Hey, well, we'll get to that later on. So
Yeah.
I'm jumping the gun there.
Any other thoughts on the hook, themes, interesting stuff that we think is sort of the book is built around? Like, I kind of love what you mentioned, Mike, about those little essays, because I kind of felt like that too. Yeah, like there's one little section here that I have in Word Processor of the Gods, which we'll get to later, but I kind of want to read it now because I feel like it relates to what you were saying, and it touches on, I think, the general idea of how this book views death. But it's when early in the book when he's discussing death with Ellie, which was incredibly written, and obviously derived from his own conversations with his daughter. But I love this section. He held her and rocked her, believing rightly or wrongly that Ellie wept for the very intractability of death, its imperviousness to argument or to a little girl's tears, that she wept over its cruel unpredictability, and that she wept because of the human being's wonderful, deadly ability to translate symbols into conclusions that were either fine and noble or blackly terrifying. If all those animals had died and been buried, then Church could die any time and be buried. And if that could happen to Church, it could happen to her mother, her father, her baby brother, to herself. Death was a vague idea. The pet cemetery was real. In the texture of those rude markers were truths which even a child's hands could feel. And I just love that section because to me it's like that first dawning realization of I love the intractability of death. I love that this book explores not only the child's dawning realization of it, but the idea of the parents having to discuss that with their children. Because as an adult, you've learned to suppress that initial dawning realization you had as a kid about the intractability of death.
Even though he's a doctor,
death.
him and Rachel both have to learn from each other. He argues that death is super, super totally natural, and she says there's nothing natural about it, and they both have stories that back up their theories.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, death is just in the room with you all the time, and it doesn't care.
I was literally just pulled that section out. He writes, when King writes on page 56, Signet, he goes, because as a doctor, he knew that death was, except for perhaps for childbirth, the most natural thing in the world. Taxes were not so sure. Human conflicts were not. The conflicts of society were not. Boom and bust were not. In the end, there was only the clock and the markers, which became eroded and nameless in the passage of time. Even sea turtles and the giant sequoias had to buy out someday. And then he goes a little much, and he talks about how he tilted the dustpan over the wastebasket and flowers slid out with a soft fume, powdering the cast-out cartons and used-up cans. Basically, the illusion of dust. All we are dust in the wind. I thought that was a little on the nose. The only moment in the book where I thought it was just too on the nose. But I do love the dichotomy between Rachel and Lewis. The conflict there was just genius.
And the fact that they can both learn from each other in a very realistic way that we totally accept. And we can be on both sides at once.
Yeah.
And when King is in top form when he writes couples like that.
Yeah. Speaking of King's writing, shall we move on to the structure and format?
Look at me, teacher.
Ooh, welcome to structure and format.
So excited.
Juiciest section of the entire podcast.
Hands down the most mundane section
Fan
that we have.
favorite.
I've been waiting an hour.
Well, it's interesting though. I think structure and format really varies episode to episode because sometimes he just writes books in a really straightforward fashion, and other times he writes them in really strange, unique ways. Like I remember, I think we never would have. I feel like we never would have this section if we didn't start with Carrie, because Carrie's written in such a strange. I felt like we had to discuss the actual structure of that book.
I think it's always great to discuss.
It is, yeah. It's just funny because, like, in a book like this, it's pretty straightforward. But I guess we can discuss it, or at least kick off the discussion by just kind of pointing out how the book is broken into 3 sections. There's the Pet Cemetery is part 1, the Micmac Burial Ground, which is part 2, and then part 3, Oz the Great and Terrible. Yeah, and they each begin with quotes from the Book of Lazarus in the Bible, as well as a few other random quotes, including "Hey Ho, Let's Go," the Ramones, and then a section from The Monkey's Paw. So
They're not really random.
yeah, I guess they're not random.
Except for the Ramones, I guess, but that's just because he loves the Ramones.
No, but Hey Ho is actually refrained throughout the book, though.
It is, but I'm just, it's for it to be in a quote. Whatever.
In the movie, isn't the guy listening to the
like,
Ramones when he runs over Gage?
He is.
And I think that's the thing.
Sheena's a punk rocker, actually.
Yeah, and see, the thing is, I think I remembered. The reason I thought that quote was there was because that's what the guy was listening to. I forgot that it was like just it became this weird mantra for Lewis.
I just imagine King and his typewriter, like with one of those really tight Ramones shirts on, and he's just sitting there like,
Do you think Louis Cree went to CBGBs back in the late 70s?
I was
Yeah,
wondering
for
about that
sure.
too, because clearly he loves the Ramones enough to check into a motel as Dee Dee Ramone. So,
He likes to party.
he does like to party.
Even before the 3 sections, though, we get this italicized intro
Oh, yeah.
that seems to be written from just King's perspective, talking about celebrities and famous historical figures and the people who buried them or the people that embalmed them or the undertakers. And it ends with death is a mystery and burial is a secret.
Love that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, why do we think that's there?
Well, I think it's because death is a mystery and burial is a secret.
I think it's emphasizing the notion that we are not on a nodding acquaintance with death anymore,
Yeah.
if we, in fact, we ever were. And
it's also
romanticizing it like that maybe is not the best thing.
Yeah. And it's also sort of like showing right away that this is about the process of death in a lot of ways, like the logistics of death to some degree, like the actual process of burial. Because, I mean, and that was probably all stuff that he stumbled upon during his extensive research into burial practices. And I think that's such a neat little like place for him to have landed on, that. Because we do see a lot of that research paying off. But then, let's talk about like he kind of just tells the story of Lazarus via 3 different quotes. And like, why do we think he chose it? Is it just simply because it's the resurrection narrative? I guess it raises the idea that it's only up to God to bring something back from the dead.
Which is maddening, right? That's why Ellie gets so mad.
Yeah.
Because if he can do it to Lazarus, like why would he let all these people die?
Yeah.
And it's maddening for a kid to know about that in the Bible and then think about death as this inevitable, unchangeable thing. It's the original Pet Sematary is Lazarus's story.
Well, he seems to be going through the stages of the acceptance of death. Ellie is an example of finding out about death at first hand. You get Judd, who's at the very end of it. And then in between, you have Rachel and Lewis that are kind of understanding them as their, what, they're 30-something couple? Like I think
like 31.
They're 18.
31.
Yeah.
There's a preteen.
There's a section where Lewis dreads becoming 37, and I thought, I'm going to go throw myself off of a bridge.
Just so you have this moment in every King
Because
book.
I am 37. Like, every book is like, I'll kill myself if I'm 37. Wow, Jesus.
Yeah, so I think
It's like whatever age you're about to turn is whatever in
On
the
October
book.
16th, when I turn 38, I'd rather be dead.
But also, I think religion was always just going to be inevitable because the idea of death and the customs that surround it are always tied to religion. I mean, the custom of burying. I mean, he references the Egyptian customs. He goes pretty deep with the ways that different cultures approach death. And obviously, being in New England where this is set, he's going to lean heavily on some of the more Christian influences that are in there. So I think it makes sense that he obviously ties this together with Lazarus, because when you see bodies reanimating and coming back to life, you do start wondering,
And we
is
never
there a God?
in the Bible. We never actually like see Lazarus after he's been resurrected. We don't know.
No.
Like it's just assumed that he is who he was.
I can't believe that they reference in the paraphrase version in here, like someone says, dude, Jesus, like he's gonna be all like rotten and decayed if you call him forth right now. He's been in there for like 4 days.
Yeah.
And he's like, nevertheless, we're gonna call him out.
We're gonna bring him back.
And he's fine. Like there's no mention of him being a zombie.
Right, and that's
He's got those holes in his hands.
yeah. I guess like that was sort of a fun thing that I was thinking. I'm like, oh, like what if Jesus brought Lazarus back and he was like a crazy zombie?
Everyone was like, oh my God, fuck. But it's very weird that there's just this one story of Jesus bringing back one guy from the dead.
Yeah.
Sounds like it might be convenient.
And I love that line in the book where Lewis is just like, that was a long time ago. Things happen.
He's like, that's ridiculous. Why did I say that?
Yeah, exactly. But he's just so tired. But I mean, I think it was only inevitable that this is going to lean heavily on Christian texts.
Yeah, and it's the most famous resurrection narrative that exists. So,
Well,
Frankenstein.
yeah.
Well, the notion of the dead.
Sorry, Lazarus, but Mary Shelley's got you beat.
The notion of the dead coming back to life sort of like subconsciously confirms the idea of God in a way. For that's there has to be some sort of spiritual element that controls who dies and who comes back. Because if the dead are coming back from this soured land, there is clearly something else that's beyond us that we don't know.
Yeah.
And I think Lewis has to struggle with the realization of these things. How does the mind approach these type of things? A lot of the book is indebted to that constant conflict of grappling and grasping things that are happening before your eyes that medically and naturally shouldn't be happening. And how does the mind approach that? And obviously thematically, that's more about grief and these things that you just wouldn't actually think would happen in your life. But on a literal level, I think it does tie into like the notions of religion. Like, are you supposed to buy these parables? Are these parables supposed to be thematic, or did they literally happen? I think that's a thing that you really do go through when you're a kid. I mean, I come from a family that's, a Jewish family. I went to a Catholic school for 12 or 14 years. I can't remember anymore, but we went to church every day. And I would sit there and just grapple with these ideas, just like, did this stuff happen? Or are these just bullshit stories like Star Wars or something like that got people in line? But what if it is literal? Like, what if this stuff did happen? And there's always that what if. And I think that's something that haunts Lewis throughout this whole book. And I think so it makes sense that there's some sort of Christian lean on there.
Yeah. Well, there was also sort of an omniscience, I'd say, to the narration. Mike, you had mentioned earlier the kind of, mini essays that were there, just these sort of digressions that were clearly from a narrator, not necessarily Lewis, about the nature of death and stuff like that. And I think that that's an interesting thing when we're talking about, the format of the book and the narrative approach is we spend a lot of time in Lewis's head, but then we'll also hop over to Rachel, we'll hop over to Judd. We spend other time in other people's minds throughout the book, but King kind of wields the power to always zoom out, and let himself start talking. And that's not something he does, I think, in every book. Because often he kind of hews pretty close to the perspective of the character. Well,
even just going back into the structure and format, these three sections are very distinct. I mean, the first section is far more harmonious than the second, and especially the third, where the third is just this almost kind of like an extended epilogue, really, when you think about it. But or the murderous final act, which again ties back into
Shakespeare.
Shakespeare, yeah.
It is like Shakespeare.
It's very Shakespearean.
Yeah.
So, I dig the structure in this book. I feel it's very tied to Lewis, even though it's not first person. I do feel that you get so deep embedded into Lewis's mind in ways that I think he even goes deeper than he does with Jack Torrance. Just the way that there are sections of this book where King traditionally indulges the idea that he's going to tease you about someone who dies. And there are moments in this book where I was genuinely surprised that King didn't say, oh, and the cat would come back the next day, or, oh, this would happen. And I feel like there's a reason for that, because he wants us to be in the same point of view as Lewis the entire book, where we are surprised and we are taken aback at the idea that what is happening is incredible, and you need to feel as aghast as he does. And that sort of reaction is paramount to the feeling that you're supposed to get out of this book.
But Mel brought it up earlier.
Yeah.
Gage, like when it drops, Gage has less than 2 months to live.
Yes, true. But that's after he's already encountered the church,
right?
sequence.
And I'm just saying that you're right in a lot of ways. Like, this doesn't have a lot of that King foreshadowing, which he does. But then when he drops that one, that's such a huge
He's
one.
judicious with his foreshadowing.
And I was
because
like,
there's also Norma foreshadowing.
He does Norma
right?
too,
Yeah.
but that's literally after the Micmac burial ground has been all established. It's leading up to church. Church is the thing that kind of shatters everything.
Yeah,
and I just thought it was interesting because in previous books they literally he does that almost with every death.
Yeah,
I mean, The Stand is just filled with them. But The Shining is filled with them.
How do we feel about that moment? Do we like that foreshadowing? Like you said, it knocked you off your socks when you were young, and it did for me too. Do we like it though? Like, I'll say that I like it to a degree, and I loved it when I was younger, but I also found myself mildly annoyed by it, like this time around on this reading, just because it almost felt, I don't know, it almost just felt like I just got knocked in the head by like.
Well, let me ask you a question. Would you prefer section 2 to kick off with, Gage died on this day? Would you prefer it to be like you're getting hit by an actual Rinko truck?
Yeah.
Oh, I understand. I get it though. I understand. There's different ways. I think I'm far more forgiving of King foreshadowing. So
we're
it's one of
reading
those
all
you
of these
read
in
that
such a
and then
row.
you take a break.
Yeah.
You could attribute your annoyance to like, oh, there it is.
Yeah.
But I feel like this one just hit me like a ton of bricks, like I was saying. And I've mentioned this before on the group text or whatever, but that foreshadowing also relates to the third section being like 50 pages long for me. Like, hitting that third section and forgetting there's a third section is so you just like you're dreading it, but you're also anticipating it, and you need to read it. It's such a smart move. It's an amazing way of introducing the climax that you know is just going to be the worst thing that you could ever possibly see.
Well, and the fact that it's
interesting-
called Oz the Great and Terrible, and that's been set up as such, like the mythical idea of whatever your monster is, you know?
Yeah.
And when you turn the page and you see that big text, like Part 3, Oz the Great and Terrible, it's like, oh, here comes the monster.
If you had any doubt that Gage was going to come back as nothing good,
I know.
It's talking about the structure again, though. After reading this it's like the third time I've read the book. For Part 3, it almost feels like the epilogue is longer than the climax itself, which is really strange. Which I love. I mean, I think it works, but just reading it again.
I mean, with Steve?
Yeah, with everything that happens for me, the epilogue, after the major events, begins when everybody shows up to Judd's house when the fire's happening. Mm-hmm. It feels like that whole section, and then waiting for Rachel to come back, is actually longer than Gage killing Judd, Gage killing Rachel, Lewis killing
both
Gage.
of those-
It's so quick.
Those deaths are very fast.
Yeah, I mean, it works. I'm
yeah.
just saying that this the book itself is much more than just about a kid coming back and killing people.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Whereas the movie, we can talk about it at a future date.
But you're right. I mean, I was shocked that like literally this death scene with Judd is maybe 2.5 pages.
Yeah.
And the
And then
Rachel
Rachel
one
shows
is
up.
1.5 maybe.
And then Lewis is there and kills
Well, yeah,
him,
and like
you know?
that's the thing is it's a baby. Like
Yeah.
when it's almost kind of anticlimactic how easy Lewis is able to bring it
Him
down,
down.
but then you also are like, well, it's a 2-year-old.
Yeah.
Like, and it's
If you thought it was too easy, we'd get a flying baby in Pet Sematary. The movie. To ease your
I think, look, I mean, the death of Gage is a very, very, very precious sort of thing that you have to kind of, I mean, it's a hard thing to write.
Yeah.
I feel without coming off as incredibly tasteless because you're killing a child that's very young. You don't want to make it seem like the shock value. You want to make it feel as if it's right for the narrative, but also true without it becoming this sort of like B-movie tasteless thing. And I actually thought the way he weaved it in is really nice. And in fact, because the whole time you're wondering what actually happened to Gage. You don't want to know, but you kind of want to know. Well, did he get hit? Was he obliterated? Did something what happened to the body? You don't want to know these things, but it's in the back of your head.
It's slowly weeded out too,
and
that
it's
information.
slowly weeded out. And the way King does it is genius. It's because Missy Dandridge comes over and says, "Oh, at least he didn't, suffer." You don't get King talking. You get Lewis's inner monologue, and he lets the anger take the more tasteless sort of details of what happens to the body, what happens to where the shoes went, where how far the truck went, all the little gritty details that if King had just narrated that would have felt so just like what is going on?
right?
Like
But it's that sarcastic, bitter,
Yeah.
angry voice that you're talking about that works so well throughout the
Yeah.
entire funeral. Really,
Yeah.
like the
Mhm.
ridiculousness of the ceremony that is encapsulated in Lewis's inner monologue.
I definitely want to talk about Gage's 2 deaths to compare and contrast them in our next section. Whenever we get to that next section, I guess.
Well, do we have any more thoughts on the structure and format of the book?
I do think that the format lends itself to a sequel. This is the third time reading it. I was shocked that Steve comes back at the end.
Yeah.
I always forget Steve.
I always
Me too,
forget that he
yeah.
comes back, and the way they set it up is so interesting to me. Like because they hint that that this power is still influencing other people.
Yeah.
And then King obviously goes the extra mile and says that Steve gets out of the town, which is great. I'm just so happy about that because I couldn't handle the idea of there's another person that's going to be influenced and walk right in there.
Maybe he
It's
goes
just-
back home to Indiana.
Yeah. To Hawkins, Indiana.
Hawkins, Indiana.
Hey, I would not
Dr.
be,
Steve Harrington.
I would not be opposed to Pet Sematary, the events of Ludlow, Maine, influencing
the
third
Pandora's
season.
box has been opened. I apologize.
So let's just be honest. Like this year, Stranger Things season 3 might not be coming back, and this is just something I have to deal with my own grief. Anyway,
It's worse than a child dying.
it is worse than a
Stranger
child
Things
dying.
have to wait another 13 months for Stranger Things.
Look, what the Dover brothers have done for this country.
All right. Anything else with structure and format, Mel?
I just did remember there are more bits of foreshadowing that I don't really like when we're with Lewis near the beginning. King is constantly inserting himself saying like, in the months to come, Lewis would reminisce and say this was actually the last happiest day of his life,
Yeah.
or like the terrors to come, blah blah blah. And I'm like, I don't need that.
We know there's terror to come.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely informs the drama. Although I was shocked that there were some details where he let the surprises still happen, like in certain situations that I thought were key. And yeah, I don't know. I think what's interesting that I found were the stuff that they actually referenced towards the end. It started becoming like Beverly Hills Cop, where all the callbacks. I always think of Beverly Hills Cop when I think of callbacks, because usually you have the one character from Perfect Strangers who's always like, oh yes, Axel, here's a key that does this or that, and you're like, oh, that's going to come back at the end. It's like the Chekhov's gun, basically. And I feel I didn't realize that so many of these things were going to be echoes. Like for example, for a whole year now, I've been talking about this supposed ghost that was in the Creed house that just kind of set the tone for the book, this thing that goes past Lewis.
Yeah.
And I always thought it was terrifying, the idea that there was just a spirit in the house that was there, just separate from everything else. But what it really was is that I just totally forgot that it actually is a premonition, that this echo.
I remember we had talked about it briefly, because I already read the book by the time you were reading it again. I thought, no, actually later on they do mention it's actually
I was shocked. I mean,
which is still effective.
Yeah, that's just one of many scenes that do actually double back towards the end, that I thought that was appropriate foreshadowing.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's not sloppy, because on the staircase it could have said something like, it would have been hard for Lewis to imagine Gage murdering his mother on this very staircase just 6 months later,
Yeah. But then there's also just like really cinematic foreshadowing too, just like the trucks that you hear in the house. Oh. Which is great, which they actually do in the movie, which we'll talk about more.
This book felt really cinematic in a lot of ways. Like I wrote that down in my notes, especially the funeral, the way the funeral is described. It just feels like it's in a script. You know?
The level of detail that King gives to the whole cemetery sequence when Lewis is digging out.
They're practical, so
I believe he even mentions it's like a horror movie, kind of like with Cujo. It's just like out of a horror movie. Cujo jumped onto the car. That type of a type
what
of
if he referenced it's like a horror movie like Cujo?
Well, he references George Romero in this.
Yeah, he also references Cujo.
He does, yeah. Well, that's a King's Dominion.
Yeah,
so.
we'll get there.
I don't know if this might have something to do with the hook, but in terms of resurrection and quote unquote zombies, despite his close connection to Romero and having just worked with him on Creep Show, I never once thought about Night of the Living Dead while reading this book.
Really?
And I never once.
I didn't
thought
either.
That. And I think that's a real power of this book, that he's able to have a story about loved ones coming back from the dead, coming back from being buried. But I never once thought about the zombies.
Final note on structure and formatting. I think we've complained in the past about King having characters tell stories within his story and how it feels unnatural. But I think it really works here when Judd tells Lewis the history of the place and he tells him the story of Timmy Baterman. He does it in a way that feels organic, and it's not like...
I like it. I just don't like it when it's dialogue between characters that goes on for a couple pages, and it's like.
What did you talk about last night, Randall?
Yeah,
you mentioned something about the description of how long the land had been there, who owned the land.
Well, think about it.
After Gage is dead.
It's like late at night. Lewis is like totally drunk, and then Judd knocks at like 12:15.
Yeah,
and he's like, "I got to tell you about Timmy Bannerman." And we're like, okay. And then he goes and proceeds to talk about like the Puritans buying the land and all this other stuff. And I'm like, oh, no. That's great and all. Let's do that after.
Well,
maybe.
If I could play Wendigo advocate for a second here, that could also just be Judd just trying to avoid getting to that story.
It's true.
Yeah.
That is a good point.
But no.
But the
what
fact
I was
that
saying,
Lewis
though,
isn't getting pissed off at me and like, get to the point. I wanted him to be like Larry David, just like, all right, how long are you going to
He's in the
ramble on
bag at this
shit?
point, though. He's. I feel like in the book he's
does
drank
yell
about
at him.
85 cans of beer at this point.
No, King just has a tendency to have a character tell a story within the story, and then sometimes within the story, somebody will start telling another story, and there's all this, and then the way that it's like he writes somebody telling a story like prose. It's like, well, I went up to the ridge there, and it's like he said, like and like that's within the recounting, which that just drives me a little bit bonkers, but. At the same time, I love the Baterman story, and the way Judd tells it is awesome, and it's like so well done. It is just kind of funny though that it's just kind of like talking about Puritans and land and everything. But
I've just grown so accustomed over the last year, where when I'm starting to read about land deeds from 1893, I'm like, okay, that's fine.
I am too.
This seems about right.
It's great context to know, but just in terms of the logistics of the situation. He's already frustrated enough that Judd came over. I mean, he literally, the first thing he says is like, look, you're a friend, but this is pushing it, which I thought was actually kind of weird and affronting.
Yeah.
But I was like, all right, let's calm down, Lewis. But I did think it was a little weird. And I also agree with it. Like, there's literally an entire long line of different quotes from, and then Bob said this, and then so they said
That's imagine
this,
it's like Monty
Hannibal said
Python.
this.
Get on with it.
But it was just like nobody remembers those lines of dialogue that long ago.
I know, like, and that's
Like-
the thing is, if I was sitting with somebody and they were telling me a story and they were just reenacting dialogue,
Yeah.
like a conversation, I'd like lose my mind.
I was like, oh, did you?
I'm like, just summarize this.
Did you memorize this
Plus,
bit?
he would be like, and then Bob was like,
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
like,
That's great, Judd. You have any more beer? And then before you get to the goddamn
Look,
point.
Judd does say that near the end of your life, when you're going senile, your memories become more and more clear. So really, we can't speak to that experience. Maybe he does remember exactly.
true.
what his
We should
notes-
criticize this in 50 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
well, cool. Well, I think that it's time for us to stop being eggheads and start talking about characters in a section we like to call zeros and villains.
I'm gonna have to kill this fucking clown. Welcome to the Losers Club, asshole!
Welcome to Heroes and Villains, or should I say Zeros and Villains?
We're going to put an official kibosh on this.
What's the kibosh?
We're not doing zeros and
It's
villains.
heroes.
It's going to be heroes and villains from here on
Officially
out.
from now on?
Officially.
You
Just
heard
like
it
the
here first.
Beach Boys said it, and we're saying it too.
Kind of like Zeros and Villains.
You like zeros and villains better?
Yeah.
I like Zero by Billy Corgan.
That's a great song. William Patrick Corgan.
WPC.
This is a section where we like to talk about characters we love, characters we maybe don't love, and everything in between. So, who wants to talk about church first?
Hey, you love cats. So
I love
Why
cats.
don't you go
I love
first?
church, and I'm just going to say this
Are
straight
you
up.
really starting with church? That's
We don't have to. I'm
Look,
just.
he's on the cover of the book.
Yeah, he's a very important
He's
character.
on the cover of every book.
and we're recording this on Sunday. So
Yeah.
let's go to church.
Yeah, let's go to church. No, church
Preach.
to me is the most tragic character of this book. No, I'm just kidding. I'm sorry. But I will say that I have such an affection for cats that I knew as soon as like it made me so angry that even when church came back and wasn't like wholly evil but just unnatural, and I understood like the way I love the way King described it, that it was like holding a sack of meat or whatever. Like it didn't
yeah.
feel like an
So
animal.
disgusting.
You know, it didn't feel like an animal, and then that's why people were so disgusted by it. But it's still, and like even though it was like hissing and being kind of a shitty cat and just bringing all these dead animals in, like dead rats and birds, I still was like, somebody pet it. Like, stop being so
Stop
mean.
shoving it off your lap.
I know, and like stop. And then Lewis was kicking it, and I'm like, you are testing me, Mister. I am not supporting you.
I hope
It's an
that
evil
cat kills you.
And
It's
then
an
when,
evil cat.
And I kind of love though how Church kind of becomes like Gage's sidekick.
Yeah.
Like in the final, like the climax, like it's tripping Judd and then
Yeah.
kind of guarding the house like on the car out front.
It's such a fuck you too because Church hops on the car. Yeah,
Yeah.
It's just like and staring at Lewis through the
I know,
house.
and I
Well,
love that.
So let me ask you this question. This leads us to my slight issues with the book when it comes to fate. The only reason Gage is able to kill Judd is because Church trips him. If you read that climax again.
Yeah.
Because otherwise Judd would have been able to run out of the house. But Church trips him at the right moment. So my question is, was this always going to happen? Was Church going to be brought back to life and show up at the house, happen to be there to trip Judd this moment? I kept thinking about fate throughout, especially in the latter pages where it's all about like predestination and how this is always going to happen, how they felt compelled to go back, that they were now part of the Wendigo story. So that was a question. It's a question. It's not
Yeah.
necessarily fact, but it's something I thought about.
I don't know what section we'd even answer that in.
Yeah,
so
we might as well talk about
could-
church.
Yeah, just tie it with church. I think it's as Randall said, church becomes a sidekick. If evil didn't have that second person there, maybe Judd would have taken the cleaver to Gage's head.
Yeah.
You know, but at the same time, look at Timmy Bannerman. Like they pretty much were going to be able to conquer Timmy Bannerman at that point. So
Yeah. But he was the only dead thing there.
well, I just love
He
the way
didn't have a little cage. To,
No, you didn't have a
he didn't
little
have a little
cage.
church to look after.
Well, it is interesting the way that the word "stupid" is used constantly to
it's so
describe.
scary.
The way that
and
things come back.
graceless too. It
He
loses its
says
sense
he
of
says
grace.
smart stupid at one point.
Yeah.
Like he refers to Church's eyes as muddy, and then also the eyes are a big part of the dead coming back because he spends a lot of time talking about how at one point he refers to, I think it was Gage or Timmy Ben, I think it's Gage, where he says it looked like 2 raisins in dough.
Yeah.
That were sunken in, which is scary. And then one eye was looking at the wall
Yeah.
and it's going after, and then one eye is staring right at Judd.
They're repulsive.
Yeah,
like
they're-
Church becomes this thing that oils against his leg, and it's always
Yeah, I
these
remember that description. Oils.
dirty.
Doesn't purr.
They're just
sleeps.
They're just vessels.
He only purrs when he's trying to suffocate Lewis on his
Yeah.
chest.
Yes.
Which is how my cat prefers to lay on me when I sleep. Also, hashtag vet talk. Please neuter your animals. I hate the whole like Lewis is like, oh, he's gonna lose his tomcat edge if I cut his balls
Yeah,
off.
I want to talk about
Neuter your
that
pets.
with Lewis when we get to the Lewis section, because I've got some thoughts on that.
And it's
too.
called neutering when it's a male. It's not called.
Well,
spaying.
it's probably a good idea to pivot over to Lewis.
Well, I'm not done talking about.
You got more to say about church?
I got some stuff about talking about church.
Church chat.
Church chat.
Take me to church, Hosier.
Take me to church. Got some crazy cats going down.
It sounds like cat screeching in here.
Yeah, it does. Cat scratch fever. By my favorite musician, Ted Nugent.
Well, I like the music, but I love the politics.
I'd have to agree.
That's a Jimmy Pardo joke. I'm going to give him full credit for that, by the way.
Yeah.
I'd like to apologize. Church. Go ahead.
Church. Anyway, do we think that there is any part of the original church in church?
I think so, because they said that there was original parts of Timmy Baterman there, like parts from his old life, like he would walk by that woman on the street and ask her about her record collection because they used to like dance to her records or something like that before he went to war.
That's like code for her showing him a good time. They weren't just dancing to records in there.
Right,
Yeah.
But it just was
It's a very
a
chaste time in American history.
But again, like this goes back to like the Evil Dead thing, because if you watch the first Evil Dead, they set the rules for what the Deadites are, and one of the things that the Deadites do is they fool the person into thinking that they're actually the person that came back. You know, there's that one point where Linda stops doing the "we're gonna get," and it just starts crying and
It's her
tries to
voice
call it
saying it,
Ash.
yeah.
Same thing with Cheryl. Same thing with all the characters in that movie. And that same thing happens in this book.
Right.
Because there's a point where Gage starts acting like his regular self before Lewis.
It's right when he dies.
Yeah.
So my theory is that if they're there, they're prisoner.
Yeah.
Everything that they do is the evil force within them, and then maybe there's a horrible consciousness trapped in there that shouldn't be there. That is the person that you've brought back. But I don't think. I think they maybe have access to memories, but I think that it's all the evil thing.
That's what I'm leaning towards.
So the soul's gone, and it's
Yeah.
the evil that takes that vessel.
Yes.
It's just basically...
or
and
the soul
using
is in
memory.
there, like just can't do anything.
That adds another
That's
layer.
a whole
That's
other
like
story.
That's why
that's
they-
like Nightmare on Elm Street.
Well, that's why the
yeah.
Gage thing is so sad to me. Like, because I feel like that is Gage in that moment. Like, he did bring Gage back, but Gage can only watch.
My hope, as nihilistic as this book is that if we're talking about heaven or hell at this point in souls, I do hope that when Gage is dead, his soul has left his body. And then what takes over that body is the Wendigo spirit, or whatever the hell is going on in the cemetery, and that the soul of Gage is fine. It's just that whoever encounters Gage on planet Earth is screwed.
I think we go on.
You have faith in that?
Well, that's what I'm saying. So do
I
you
got
think?
faith in that. No, that's the line for the
Okay, so
You
Mike,
have
so
faith
do
in
you
it.
think? Okay, let's go all the way back to church then. So is this just some spirit that's taken over the body of
Well, let's
church
go all
and
the
is
way-
still using the cat instincts?
All the way back
Yeah.
to Spot. Because
Yeah,
that's the confusing
that's
one to
Judd's
me.
dog, yeah.
Judd's
Yeah.
very much married to the fact that Spot was always a good dog. Even when he came back, like Spot never showed any aggression. He was just disgusting.
yeah.
Yeah, because like when he describes how his mother was screaming and that wakes him up and he runs downstairs, he basically says the dog corners her, but he's not doing it. The dog's just standing
He's
there.
not snarling. He's
You know
not
what?
trying to go at her.
This goes back to what I always say about why it's so hard for me to watch a movie in which
Yeah.
a dog dies as opposed to a child dying. Because for me, unless they're trained a certain way, dogs are always innocent from beginning to very end. Whereas a baby will still grow up to become a corruptible adult. And so maybe that's the thing. Maybe the
Same with
reason
cats.
why Judd's dog is always just kind of lame is because there's nothing to really corrupt there. Whereas Gage, as a human being, I
All
don't
right.
know.
But then-
Listen,
but-
I'm going to draw a comparison here that's not going to be popular. It's like Animorphs. When you morph into...
Are they related to Pokemon?
No. When you morph into an animal in Animorphs, you are compelled by the instincts and intelligence of that animal. So if they can populate a human body, they get all the faculties that comes with that, which includes premeditation, planning, cognizance, whatever.
Yeah.
If you're a cat, cats are kind of spooky anyway. Like, they're independent. They're hunters. And Spot acts like a dumb old dog that doesn't really know where it is and needs to be washed all the time. The bull is really mean and charges at everything.
God, that's the scariest one. I kept imagining the bull coming
Handwriting.
down. For some reason, my mind, I would just like go into these lapses of like hypnosis, just thinking of what all of the people looked like coming back from the burial ground. Like little Gage getting to the deadfall. I was like, oh no.
Oh, I know. I actually had that same thought. Like, it was creepy to me at first. Like,
Yeah.
the idea of baby Gage walking through the swamp and walking through the fog,
Yeah.
like this like zombie version of him. Like, that was giving me chills at
Yeah.
first, just the concept of that. But then when I was thinking about this baby clambering
Yeah.
up the
Or, even, or like because it's on the side of the Wendigo now, the Wendigo's like clearing the path, like, oh, as you were.
or like picking him
Yeah,
up.
just lifting him over.
like his top hat. Oh,
Yeah, like, having trouble with some stairs there. It's like Delbert Grady for some reason. But no,
wait, why are we talking with like the Wendigo would have a British accent?
yeah, I don't know. I just imagine it.
James
as you
Wendigo.
were. I just think about how the spirit acts in Gage.
Yeah.
And so clearly that's not Gage, sort of
Plus,
rational
is it
thought.
a hive mind? Like, is it one piece of this thing that comes back in every animal? Is this the first time that two things have been back at the same time? And like, I don't know. I think it just relates to what vessel it's inhabiting.
Well, if we go by the Evil Dead rules, it's collective evil.
Yeah, that's true.
Because there aren't any just personifications of separate sort of evils. They're all the same.
And to be fair, we obviously know the movie ending, but it is still technically an open ending. Of the book still technically has an open ending with Rachel coming back.
It's true.
Yeah.
You know, who knows? I don't know. Maybe she'd just be really weird. We don't necessarily know she's going to be some psycho right away. Who knows?
Maybe Lewis is right. Like, yeah, maybe it's she's so freshly dead.
Maybe this is a happy
totally
ending. But maybe this
fine.
book does have a happy ending. Hold on a second. This is changing everything. Rachel's fine. This is great.
Yeah.
They go to Disney together. He gets a job working at Disney.
What do we think about the idea that we're kind of debating these rules and we don't really know them for sure? I personally like that. I don't want it all laid out. I want it to be
I agree.
more, I like the vagueness of it. But do we think that the story would have been benefited from having some sort of idea of what?
No.
Yeah.
Especially because we don't know how animals' minds work.
Yeah.
I like again, as Randall was calling it, the gateway.
Yeah.
Is they kind of just act like weird off animals, and we don't know what connections are being made in those brains.
What else I love, though, is that the other people in the family, obviously Ellie keeps saying he stinks, but Rachel never really talks about church after church is back as being strange, or for a lengthy period of time.
At the very end, she does.
At the very end, she does. But during the whole, I just feel like it's only because Lewis knows what's happening. He's able to really be looking out for what is off about church now. Whereas the other ones would just assume it's just church. It's just church being church.
Well, also because Lewis is basically playing Frankenstein, Victor Frankenstein, and hiding all the little messes that church keeps making. Knocks those tires over,
the mice and everything else.
He's about to have sex, and then he has to clean up the crow that's sitting
Nice,
there,
get it
or
up
the
after
raven.
that.
Oh, and I love that he's like, when church like has shown it to him. Well, I kind of love it because animals like to bring you their, like, I killed this thing, like my cat likes to bring her stuffed mice to us, and like just present it. But like, I kind of love that that's not really what church is doing. Church is more just showing like how much of a badass he is. Because like when he's like, Church, what are you doing with this bird? It like just he leans down and eats one of its eyes.
It's like right in front of it.
Yeah.
Like the cats don't, granted I'm not a cat person, but the cats don't traditionally keep eating the thing when it drops it off, right?
I mean, I'll say that when my cat killed a mouse once, it had no desire to eat it. It just was
Your
swatting
cat
at
killed a mouse?
Yeah.
Where did you have a mouse problem?
It wasn't a problem. It was one mouse.
Okay.
And it was right when we moved into our new place.
Oh my
and it's
God.
since been taken care of. But it was so funny because she's a hunter. Like she's a hardcore hunter. That's all she wants to do. And so we play with her constantly. But she started like always looking under the dishwasher and started just sitting and like staring at the dishwasher for hours and hours at a time. And we were like, is something under there? Like, does she know about something? And then one day I was working from home and then I heard this big like it was like just a loud sort of poof, like kind of noise. And I was like, what happened? And then she started trotting and I couldn't really see her. She was kind of obscured, but I saw something big in her mouth. And then I like got up and I like turned. It was like kind of in a horror movie. I was like walking around the side of the couch, like seeing what she had. And then and then literally there was a mouse like laying on its side and she was just batting at it and like leaning down. And I was like, do not eat it.
Yeah.
Do not eat it. And like I ran to get a towel to like take care of it. But then the mouse was still alive.
God.
And it ended up because she didn't want to kill it. She just wanted to play with it, and it ran away. But then, like a couple days later, so we knew it was still there. And a couple days later, we came home and we found like it was dead. But she hadn't eaten it or anything.
Well, it looks like she spared you from being Nathan Lane and Lee Evans. And
Mouse Hunt.
yeah,
Wow.
The 1998 film.
Wow.
97, December.
97?
December 97. Never forget.
It just makes sense that he uses a cat, right? Cats are creepy.
Yes.
Cats
Yes.
hunt things.
Yes, they love to hunt.
Plus, he just used a dog a couple years ago, so he must use a cat this time.
Yeah.
Also, I'm not filthy. That was the only mouse. I don't live in
okay.
I
filth.
wouldn't blame you. I mean,
okay.
mice are all over this.
Hey, we're
fucking
currently
city.
sitting in an office that had a rat problem.
Oh, God, that's right.
Less than a year ago. So
Okay, so I think that's some good church talk. I think it's
chat.
time. I think church is over, and I think it's time to go to the doctor's office, talk to Dr. Creed.
What about Steve?
We'll get to Steve. Well, Steve's also in the doctor's office, so he can
sure
join in.
is.
this is
God
my
bless
second favorite Steve.
Wow.
So it goes Steve Harrington,
Steve
Steve
Masterson.
this guy,
Masterson.
and then Stephen King.
Oh yeah, that's true. Good point.
Well,
Good
no,
point.
Steve spells with a PH.
It's true.
Yeah, that's right.
That's
These guys
true,
are probably
yeah.
the VEs.
I don't think he. Do you think anyone ever calls him Steve?
Yes.
Really?
I bet you Tabby calls him Steve.
I bet she calls him Stevie.
Uncle Stevie.
Oh.
I call him Uncle Stevie.
Daddy
Steve?
Stevie.
I was gonna say she probably calls
Randall
him
and I are
Daddy.
the same wavelength
Daddy
right now.
Steve. Oh, jeez.
Did you write another book, Daddy?
Stop.
He's like, yeah, it's in my cabinet by my desk.
Considering how much he writes, though, like. Considering how much he writes, though, that is probably a question she asks
Mike's
him.
about to do a spit take of
I
coffee
know.
over
Mike is
here.
literally
I'm
losing
sorry,
his
Mike.
mind.
I'm sorry. That was a little literal. You be all right? Oh, God. Hold on. Keep it running.
God,
We're having a good time here.
This is like lame quote from by my desk.
It's like, yeah, it's literally in the cabinet by his desk, by the way. He's like, yeah, baby. it's in
Not
there.
even
It's in
playing
there.
along
Not
with the
even-
sex
it's like-
talk.
Yeah.
It's by my desk, whatever. Go get it.
It's like, sorry, I used up all my great sex talk.
Oh man. Okay.
Dr.
So
Creed.
we know that Lewis is horny, but what else do we know about Lewis Creed?
Oh gosh.
What do we like about Lewis
Well,
Creed?
when we first meet Lewis, he's going through a lot. He's just driven from Chicago all the way to Maine. Not a fun drive. And
His family hasn't seen the house that he picked out for them.
yeah, and they're kind of giving him shit about it. And
Go from a big city life to small town life. Big change.
yeah,
Yeah.
major change. I mean, he's from the big city, the city by the lake, as Corgan says.
City of Blues.
do you guys buy him as 31?
No.
Only because I am older than him. I still see that he's older than me. As a kid, sure, why not 31? But now I think, no, he's got to be older than me, right?
He has a lot of logistical conclusions that speak more to like a 40-something than an early 30-something.
Sure.
What's funny, though, is King was around this age when he started writing this book, though.
Interesting.
He was 31,
I
32.
think that's just our generation is doing things much later.
Yeah,
so
probably.
we think
I mean, that joke, though, when you think about it, I mean, again, people around this time were having kids straight out of
you had
college,
to
if
face
not high
death
school.
when you were 31 back then.
Yeah. It's
Life
just,
expectancy was 37.
it's just wild.
In the 80s, no one lived past 40. You
the
were really
advancements
lucky.
were incredible.
I will say, though, that I feel like I can very much see him as that age in the way that he still doesn't feel like he's super comfortable as a parent.
No, absolutely.
Yeah,
not.
which I really like. Like, he obviously loves his kids, but he still is exhausted and sometimes doesn't quite know how to talk to them. And also, I feel like there is still sort of a liveliness to him and Rachel's relationship, not even in the pound cake moments, which we'll get to, but there's sort of a
it hasn't
spark.
faded.
Yeah, it hasn't faded. There's a
Yeah.
real spark to the relationship that's really charming. I really root for them as a
Yeah.
couple. I really like them as a couple.
Although
still
he
root for
did
them.
go see a whore in Chicago.
Oh, we're gonna get there.
Well, again, we
When-
all do that. I mean,
when we
Chicago.
yeah.
Well, when in Chicago.
When it's time for dessert, we'll get there.
I like that he's a South Side kid who's had like 5 or 6 different odd jobs.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of interesting. I was just like, well, at my time when I was working at a pizza place, a deep
Well, that
dish
was-
pizza place, and then when I was working at a funeral parlor, I was just like, how many jobs has he had?
Was paying his due? Wasn't it to get through school? And she was also working and everything else. Though, too?
True, but like there was a lot. Like I was just like, Jesus, this guy's a jack of all trades. Maybe Bruce Campbell really should have played him.
But no, I mean, like I feel like Lewis is somebody who, and I feel like there's a lot of flaws to the character, and there's a lot of like you can see the obsession, like the seeds of the obsession in him as well, just in the way that, I don't know, just the general way that like he's painted early as a character. I like that. I love his relationship with Judd. I think that friendship really helps humanize him, and it really helps humanize his worldview. It's kind of, I kind of really enjoy just having that like gulf of age between him and Judd. There's a lot to be learned about the characters between those interactions.
Well, I have a big question about Judd because he is very worried about what will happen to church when church is neuter is the right word for church, right?
Yeah.
I have a couple things here about he feels that something will be destroyed in church that he valued.
You're talking about Lewis, not
About
Judd.
Lewis not wanting to neuter church
Right.
and why he doesn't want to neuter him. It's brought up a couple times. I don't know if anybody thought that there was a reason why King did that.
I think
There's
that
a fear of being emasculated. Or
exactly.
found,
I think a lot of it has to do with. I mean, just look at when we first meet Lewis. His first thought that we get in his head, and we're going to spend a lot of time in his head, so it sets the tone there, is that he wants to abandon his family and run because, again, there's that sort of doubt that he has as a father. And I think that does speak to being an early 30-something, you know?
Yeah,
he has these new kids. He has this job they're moving because of him. They're not moving because of Rachel. They're not moving because Ellie got accepted to some private school. They're moving because of him. So he's uprooted his family from where they grew up and everything they knew. And there's a lot of weight on that, and it's all on him. And
he also has to prove himself to Rachel's father.
Exactly.
So
he's definitely emasculated by Rachel's father.
Yeah,
He
totally.
cops to this in the book. Doesn't he say it wasn't because it was tied up with his masculinity, although really it was.
Yeah.
Like he says that about thinking about church. He just doesn't want to go too deep down that road.
Yeah,
he doesn't want to accept it.
His whole status as a caregiver is brought into question by Rachel's dad, and he's still too young and too early in his career to overcome those anxieties. And I think that's what really propels a lot of his journey in the book. And that's painted really effectively, I think, too. Even if Erwin is kind of a mustache-twirling villain.
Sorry, you go first.
You compare this to The Shining a little bit, or like it's a sister novel, but Lewis is not like Jack. Like when we meet Lewis, I feel like he's supposed to be much more relatable. There's nothing in his past that's going to indicate a dangerous obsession, really, other than like, you know, he wants to prove himself. And I think the abandoning his family thing becomes sort of charming. Like, you know, he wants what's best for his family.
True.
Like, we get to see that he is so dedicated to them and to his son, really, later on. I think he's like this great sort of everyman that King has painted for us.
I think there's a very real young adult escapism to his reactions to things. I mean, the idea that he wants to just go and be a medic down in Orlando is a very easy escape that I myself have had in my life as growing up as an early 30-something, of just being like, I wish I could just fucking cut away and, you know, from it all. And I think that's a very real fear. However, when the shit gets really bad in this book, he's talking less about abandoning his whole family and bringing his family with that escape.
That's why I think that, especially in the beginning, we talks about, you know, wanting to leave his family. I think that that's not necessarily a character trait.
No.
Whereas that's just a thought that we all have about wanting to escape for a minute.
Yeah.
Because there's never a doubt for me this entire book that he ever wants to actually leave his family.
No.
You know?
Well, which is interesting because I was reading a paper called Love and Death in Stephen King's Pet Sematary by Terry Heller. And Terry wrote this for, I guess, Coe College. I don't even remember how long ago this is. But I was reading the essay online, and it was actually written in 1992 for a collection, Pet Sematary, actually, which is interesting. But Terry was basically suggesting that Lewis works for the destruction of his family, though without conscious understanding of what he is doing. And one of the things that makes this novel so horrifying is that unconsciously, Lewis has wanted this destruction all along. I don't know if I agree with that.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with that.
No.
Yeah.
I think
seems
if
like a
anything, he
dedicated
wants
dad.
it. I think if anything, he's desperate to keep it together.
That's why he brings
That's why
church back.
because his escape could have been like, okay, good, the kid's gone. I got an excuse now to get the hell out of here. Eventually, you know.
I think it's confirmed at the end when he's willing to take his life because he's destroyed his family.
He doesn't want to go on without his family.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know?
Like he's basically okay with the fact that he's going to have to kill himself because of everything that he's done. And
I think another revealing aspect of him is bringing back church, like the decision to bring back church, isn't even so much like it is a part of wanting Ellie to be happy and to give her childhood cat back. But it's also, there's a part of it that's also kind of selfish because he doesn't want to have to talk to her about death.
Yeah.
Like that's something that I think
I
he
agree with that.
acknowledges in it.
Yeah.
Is that he doesn't want to have to engage with the realities of death with her after he already saw how she reacted just to the idea that church could die.
Well, it's
And
also
how Rachel reacted to death.
how
too,
Rachel
and
reacted.
How she reacts to death.
which almost seems kind of hypocritical in his own terms because he's so insistent on the idea that death is natural and that the kid needs to learn death on their own. So you'd think that this opportunity to have, her wrestle with church's death would have been something that he would be kind of for.
Just patched things up with Rachel.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think it's more about like just trying to keep things copacetic in the household.
More bathtub hand jobs.
More
Sure.
bathtub hand
Just-
jobs, yeah.
That's what you're aiming for at all times. The part that does kind of run counter to this for me, but also makes sense in this somewhat horrifying way, is when he's unable to be there for his family after Gage's death, and he's unable to comfort Rachel
Yeah.
when she needs to be comforted at the table, which to me is actually in my cemetery section because it's so scary to me that you would lose yourself so completely that you can't give the rest of your remaining family what they need.
And like both Judd and Steve are like, dude, you have a daughter
Yeah.
that's like still here.
I mean, even Erwin says it towards the
yeah,
end
yeah,
when
yeah.
everything is lost and Ellie is losing her mind. She's in the hospital. Erwin's like, look, we get it. It's an awful thing that Gage died, but you have a living daughter. And it's even at the end, you kind of side with this monster Erwin. You're like, yeah,
But
you're right.
the funny thing is,
But
I
it's
guess
too late.
it's not funny, but unless you're in his shoes, I don't think you can fully understand what he's going through. Because even earlier on, when Judd's telling the story about Timmy's father, and he says, if only Timmy had a wife and daughter, maybe he wouldn't have tried to bring Timmy back to life. If you haven't read this a couple times, that would just be a throwaway quote.
Yeah.
But reading it again,
Yeah.
like, well, Creed had a wife and daughter, but he still tried to bring Gage back. So
yeah.
tough.
Interesting.
It's very similar to Walter White in a weird way, if you think about it, with Breaking Bad.
Pizza.
Pizza being thrown out.
The pizza thing being thrown out for sure. But in the beginning of Breaking Bad, you're so dead set that he's doing this for his family. And even by the end, you still think he's doing it for his family. But he does lose his way in that journey. And I feel Lewis does lose his way in this. It becomes an obsession for him. Even after his own daughter is begging for him to go. There's a great line where like Ellie doesn't wave back. Like when he
Yeah.
waves, he tries to like hide
Rachel
this.
knows he's hiding something.
Yep.
Ellie doesn't want to leave him alone in Maine.
Yeah.
He
And-
can't listen to them.
And he's still putting on a front as like, no, I'll see you soon. Blah. And like Ellie sees right through it and doesn't wave back. In that moment, you know that he's gone.
But he does still think he's doing it for them.
He does.
He has
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
fantasy of them coming back. He has it all planned out, how he's going
They're
to
gonna escape.
reintroduce Gage into their lives.
He's going to drive down to Orlando with dead Gage.
He's going to work as a doctor at Epcot or something like that, or driving the tram around.
Well, it's interesting, like, oh man, the parallels to this in Breaking Bad are very real. Because there's, that wonderful moment where, it's actually horrifying in the show when Walter is talking to Skylar and acting like he's doing all this for the family, and she's just like laying there with her back to him and basically crying and shivering. But there's that moment in the book also when Lewis asks Rachel, hey, remember when, Gage was almost going to come out as being mentally handicapped? Would you still loved him? And he's only asking that because he wants to know if she's going to be able to love this corpse kid that comes back. And in hindsight, that's a very fucking creepy and
of course.
eerie scene. Because at that point, he's just further down the downward spiral than you even thought. And I thought that scene was just horrifying.
Well, just his justifications, like and plans for Gage and how confident he is that he'll be able to put Gage down if it's not right. That to me is like really terrifying because there's a lunacy to it.
Yeah.
Like he won't
Or
be able
even
to do
the fact that, like, if it works, if he pulls it off, what is he going to do about the press? What is he going to do about the people that went to Gage's funeral?
Well, he said he wanted to go out. He wanted to like change their names and like drop off the
right,
grid.
and he's like, that's easy.
This kind of leads us to. Oh, so you go first.
But what's also really kind of eerie, and just this ties more into just King pouring himself into this, not just from what he experienced when he was in Orangutan, or what was it?
Orrington.
Orrington. This goes
Home of
into-
Orinco trucks.
Orinco trucks, yeah. This ties into his own experience, but Lewis doesn't really have a strong relationship with his father or even his own parents. I mean, he grew up with his crazy uncle, I guess, with, doing the funeral parlor. And then he also talks about how Judd was really the father he never had.
Yeah. It's a sad part.
King didn't really have a relationship with his father either. It's just interesting how he kind of pours himself into Lewis a little bit too.
This is what thinking about that, Mike, is this is one of the early instances of there being the overbearing father as opposed to the overbearing mother.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Chris
Irwin.
Goldman, right?
With Irwin.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because Dory just kind of is actually there for Rachel.
Yeah.
Right.
I thought that the relationship with Lewis and Irwin, when that starts to actually flesh itself out a little bit more, you really do see the true Lewis. Because in the beginning, he has the answers in a lot of ways. Yes, everything's kind of chaotic when they first get to Ludlow, which kind of sets the tension and the pace for the whole story.
He's very practical. He's a
but
doctor.
He's very practical. He's very logical. Even when he's working in his office, he's a great leader.
And he's good at his job.
And he's very good at his job.
Boy, Pascal died under his watch.
But he did everything right in that
I
situation.
know, it's not his fault. It's not his fault.
Yeah, I mean, there's brains pouring out of his head.
Granted,
some
there's no
doctor.
I mean, granted, he had no chance to live, but come on.
No chance. I think that, let's hold that over Lewis's
Yeah, we
head.
will.
I
do, all
Yeah, I already do.
Well, what you're saying about Irwin and Lewis
Yeah.
to me is like we understand his anger, and there are parts in the book where he's like, God, I should really just turn this around. I should turn this to pity. I should find something in me that's going to repair this wound. But I feel like and maybe I'm wondering what you guys feel, I'm with him in that there's no way I could get over that. That guy's just a douche.
Yeah.
I
I
find
agree.
Lewis's anger so relatable, and I don't want him to be the bigger person with Irwin.
No.
But what I'm saying is that I don't think until Judd he really has any sort of. I think he's
Father figure.
incredibly independent, and it's always been on his own shoulders, which is why I think he resents the Goldman family even more, because Rachel comes from this family that has always not always accepted her, because the whole thing with Zelda and all, but there is some sort of comfortability there, and I think that informs a lot of his decisions too, because he's always been on his own. When Judd tells him that it's his own burden, that he has to, he reaps what he sows, essentially, I think he takes that to such an heightened level because of what his upbringing was like.
When he hates that his mother lied to him about
Yes.
where babies come from.
Yeah.
Which was a great character.
Yeah.
I
There's
love
a-
that because my
Yeah.
mom lied to me about where babies come from too.
Oh, where'd
too.
she say they came from?
I'm so embarrassed to say it. She said they came out of the belly button.
Did they really?
That's a common,
Oh my god.
Did they
You know,
really?
it's funny. I didn't even.
just a little bit higher.
I was never lied to. I think I just grew up assuming certain things. You would hear about the storks dropping off babies and all that garbage. It wasn't until she told me how it actually happened. That was the first real conversation that was had about it.
My parents just showed me. They just started having sex, and they're
Oh
like,
my
"This is where it
God.
goes." I'm just joking.
It's eastbound and down.
But you guys,
Let the boy
do you guys
watch.
think it's a
Let
little
the boy
weird
watch.
that he's so adamant about that being a terrible thing, but then he makes Santa footprints in the house. Like, you'll lie to Ellie about Santa being real.
Again, it ties into those things that.
Why about church being dead?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Well, I mean, it's the trivialities of life that we kind of just let happen.
Guys, Lewis is a piece of shit.
No, we
I'm
like
kidding.
him.
I'm totally kidding. I'm totally
It's very
kidding.
deep, Vinny.
Lewis reminds me, this is a strange anecdote, but I remember seeing, and I might have actually even told it on the podcast and then maybe even deleted it when I was editing it, but it reminds me in Little Miss Sunshine, Greg Kinnear's character. And I remember seeing that film and being like, God, he was such an asshole. Like, and my girlfriend at the time was like, no, he's just going through things. Like, he's just going through the shit. And that's kind of what Lewis is doing here. We see Lewis at a very hard time in his life when he's just starting to build his life together, but that's just not where fate has it. Fate has it where it's actually the end of things. So it's this weird crossroads for this character where he's really starting his life, but he's not able to. Again, it goes into the free will. Like, the fact that he doesn't have the will to not be able to carry it out is
Should we
kinda
talk about
torturous.
this
I would
now?
say, do we talk? I really want to talk about the fate and free will. Should we save that for the cemetery? Should we save that?
No, I think we
for-
should talk
Do
about
we do
here.
it now? We're at Lewis.
Okay.
Yeah, we're talking about the character.
Who wants to kick this off?
You.
Yeah,
Thank
you're-
you.
Yeah.
I love this book. I do find free will in this case to be much more interesting than fate, or than Lewis and other people being controlled somehow by the cemetery. I think when we were all having this big discussion about Lewis and grief and what we would go through and bringing Gage back, I don't need there to be some extra spiritual thing kind of compelling him to do this. I would rather just be bad reasoning or what links you would go to as a parent or as somebody who you love, somebody who dies whom you love, what you would do to bring them back, what grief does to a person. I don't necessarily need there to be some link where you would go into the woods and say, oh, don't worry about that. It's just a loon voice. Oh, don't worry about this animal's fire. Like there's almost a script to it.
Oh, see, I love all that.
I think you get both, and I'm with you, Justin. I think
Yeah.
it's scarier if you have a choice and you choose the abomination.
Exactly, yeah.
But I think there was more of the possession by the power of the place than I remembered. Like Judd, when he first takes him up there with Church, is pretty much not Judd. He's
Yeah.
possessed by the burial ground. And I don't like that as much as just kind of a weak-willed man.
Oh, yeah, we agree on that. We agree on that.
And I hope, maybe I'm wrong because I feel like, again, there was more of the possession stuff in here than I remember, but my preferred reading is that both of those things are happening. The place is pushing you, and you could stop, but it's tougher because the place is pushing you.
And to be
Exactly.
fair, because Steve does leave.
Yeah.
But at the same time, though, Steve wasn't bringing his cat there.
Well,
and Steve wasn't being
it also
involved with his
says the
child,
Force
so-
lets up on Steve.
And that's the
Yeah.
problem I have. Okay, let's go a little further, too. I think all the Wendigo events are scary, are genuinely scary.
Absolutely.
Whenever they're heading to the burial ground, it's very terrifying. I don't know if it absolutely 100% needs to be in this book. I almost wish it was its own story at times. I wish it was just more of a natural, follow me because I know of a place. I wish it was a little more simple in that way.
Well, I don't even think King knows. The narrator questions it himself. I mean, like, look at this section right here on page 334. King writes, he bore left at the fork, approaching Gage's grave now, and suddenly, appallingly, realized he could not remember what his son had looked like. He paused, staring off into the rows of graves, the frowning facades of the monuments, and tried to summon him up. Individual features came to him, his blonde hair, still so fine and light, his slanting eyes, his small white teeth, the little twist of scar on his chin from the time he had fallen down the back steps of their place in Chicago. He could see these things, but could not integrate them into the coherent whole. He saw Gage running toward the road, running toward his appointment with the Orenco truck, but Gage's face was turned away. He tried to sum up Gage as he had been in his crib on the night of the kite-flying days and could only see darkness in his mind's eye. Gage, where are you? Have you ever thought, Lewis, that you may not be doing your son any good service? Perhaps he's happy where he is. Maybe all of that isn't the bullshit that you always thought it was. Maybe he's with the angels, or maybe he's just sleeping. And if he's sleeping, do you really want to know what it might be like when you wake him up? Oh, Gage, where are you? I want you home with us. And then this is King speaking as a narrator. But was he really controlling his own actions? Why couldn't he summon up Gage's face, and why was he going against everyone's warning? Judd's, the dream of Pascal, the trepidation of his own troubled heart. He thought of the grave markers in the pet cemetery, those rude circles spiraling down into the mystery, and then the coldness came over him again. Why was he standing here, trying to sum up Gage's face anyway? He would be seeing it soon enough. So, based on that, and again, that last section right there is King talking, I would argue that it is the forces controlling him at that point, and that maybe, I don't know, I would like to say that because of what we've discussed on like the constitution of Lewis and who he is and his id, maybe that made it easier for the power to the forces of evil to control him. But at the same time, I think based on how we see how Judd was influenced and what it did to the fates of every one of Judd's friends, I would beg to reason that there was no hope and that they didn't have any free will. I think that it's just that they're on their own path. And I think that's probably why King had that quote about how he doesn't believe in that. Like, he thinks that you are responsible for your own actions. I think that may be why he has a problem with this book, because it is kind of cemented in that fact.
And maybe that's why it's just not as apparent in the movie.
No.
Which I think is, I kind of like how certain things happen in the movie as opposed to the book. Obviously, spoiler alert, the book is far superior to the movie. But anyway, go ahead, Randall.
Well, just basically, I don't know. I think to view it, I think you're right in the sense that it kind of overwhelms in the end, the supernatural presence. But I don't know, man. It like really undercuts the power of the book if we assume that it's that there is no free will. Because I really think that part of what's so scary about it is Lewis having the capacity and not being able to, because to me it's like, to know that you have the possibility to bring something back, you can't ignore that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to me, and like that's why I agree with you that we didn't need the influence, you know what I mean? Like, we didn't need the supernatural presence pushing them towards it. I think nudging towards it is good, like drawing them closer. But I think, and I would say that my read of it is that the participant has to be at least somewhat willing, you know? And that's why I think Steve doesn't, because in the end, Steve's not willing at all. but he's drawn to it, but he's able to turn off. And yeah, the Force does let up on him, but I think it's because it sees that he doesn't have the, he's it's not his like skin in the game.
What about the premonition though?
Yeah.
What about that? I feel like maybe you could explain it away with saying that like Gage was going to die, and that's what the premonition is. It's not necessarily a premonition that Lewis is going to bring Gage back. It's just that Gage is going to die. But I don't know. I prefer Justin and Mai's reading, but I do think that there's a lot of evidence for Mike's reading. I don't know.
I go back into the image of the spiral. The spiral is
my thing is, sorry, you go first, Michael.
Well, the idea that the spiral is that once you're in it, you're just going to keep going down. It's a slide. You can't.
Yeah,
go
but you have
back
to
up a
walk
slide.
into the spiral.
There's a point of no return where you can't get out of the drain.
But that's where I feel like Judd is the key crucial element to it, because had Judd not shown him that cemetery, Lewis never would have done this.
And the thing with that, though, here's my bottom line is Mel and I agree that okay, here's the thing. As I keep stumbling over myself here, it's complicated, like the movie. Mel and I agree that we hope it's more about free will, and Mike, you're saying you think it's probably about predetermination, but I think that it is the way that you're saying it is, Mike. I do think it is more predetermined. I wish it was free will, but I think it is predetermination. And I kept thinking about, I had to go look it up, but it's the William Shatner Twilight Zone episode, Nick of Time, with the fortune telling machine. Okay, and how
not the Johnny Depp Christopher Walken film,
which takes place in 90 minutes, by the way.
Yeah.
Anyway, tangent.
The little devil,
devil machine.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing: you look at that two ways. Is this machine compelling him to stay there and keep looking for answers, as opposed to living his own life? Or is it just his own inability to move away and need to know certain things that's keeping him there? And I would prefer it to just be that, as opposed to him being possessed by something.
Well, here's another thing. We talked about the idea that these manifestations could be literal or spiritual or allegorical. Do we think he's actually seeing the Wendigo? Do we actually think that it's just a more metaphorical notion that the Wendigo is just his evil intentions or his worst intentions, and that Pascal is just his own inner monologue? Because there are even thoughts when you're listening to, or when you're reading about like Lewis talking to himself. There was a part of me that was like, is that Pascal talking? And then if it's not, what's the difference between his inner conscience and Pascal at that point? And what's the point of Pascal at all if he has that inner conscience that follows him throughout the book and you never see Pascal ever again? Yeah. So maybe in that sense, if it is metaphorical, then yeah, there is such a thing as the idea of free will, and that all this, spiritual mumbo jumbo is not for want. But I mean,
obviously, though, Lewis does go out there because his feet are all dirty when he gets back to bed.
He still goes out there, but
Pascal and the Wendigo are totally real and outside Lewis to me.
I
and
agree.
Ellie dreams of Pascal.
Especially, because even the first time that he goes out to the woods and you think maybe he doesn't encounter the Wendigo, maybe that is just a trick of the fog and what he's fearing. But it's the repeat trips where you're
and Judd's seen it. It's an old evil versus an old good. I love the part where Pascal says, "I come as a friend," but friend isn't exactly the word he uses. He uses some foreign word that's closer to like guide or something. So I think that's it's a King thing. And also I love the part where Lewis is in the God's Swamp or whatever it's called, Little God's Swamp. Yeah. And he looks down and he realizes like these plants shouldn't be in Maine.
Yes.
Like that's totally outside of his...
Well, that's where I think I wrote that in the Dominion because I'm like, I think we're in kind of a liminal. I actually had a moment.
We're in Mrs. Todd's shortcut.
I was thinking that. I actually genuinely thought that. And no, it was funny. Like you just said, the mist. Like we'll get to it. Like my room, I had a room 237. Just like the Wendigo is the mist.
I have a few room 237.
Yeah, I've got.
But to go back to that is that I think the conscious choice of having other characters see and experience these spiritual elements, again, goes to the point where it goes against the free will thing. It's that this power was there.
Plus I wish it was free will. It literally kills him. Yeah. Like it's not exploiting a coincidence. It affects the truck driver.
Again, that's what I don't like.
But again, it goes into the King thing where if they allude to this, it's real. And it's something that I've brought up multiple times. And the reason why I have the problem with the woman in the room and all these other things is that when King alludes to things in his books, they are fact. They are truth. They are what they're going to happen. When the person says, "Oh, it's weird that I just felt when they talk about the truck driver who felt he needed to speed through Ludlow," that is the power talking. It's not just some weird coincidence. Coincidences don't happen in King's book. books.
There's the opposite side too. There's a good force that even Rachel's like, well, it's ridiculous to think this would affect the availability of plane tickets or rental cars,
Exactly.
but it does.
It does, yeah.
And even just trying to get back into town, like falling asleep at the wheel and being compelled. I don't know.
And what you're saying, and I think we're in agreement here, we wouldn't mind it if it was a little bit of that, as long as it was also clear that Creed,
Agreed.
could turn away from it.
I don't even mind the whole Pascal thing of him saying, hey, here's what's out here. But I just wish the rest of it was just, I don't have to go out there. I don't.
I think he does say that. I do think that we're supposed to be scared by the fact that he succumbs to this even though he did have a choice. So I disagree with Mike's reading because that's what makes the book scary to me. And maybe it's wistful thinking on my part. I'm totally willing to admit that.
I think that it is much more about predetermination in the novel. I wish it wasn't, but
it's the same debate that most scholars have of William Shakespeare plays.
We'd love to hear your
talking
thoughts,
about
readers
Hamlet.
and constant listeners.
But no, I just
Rosencrantz and
I
Guildenstern.
just remembered a line that I think is important to remember here. Irwin tells Lewis that what he heard Ellie scream was Paxcow says it's too late.
Yes.
So
that implies there could have been.
there was a choice that was made. There was a line that was crossed, you know? I do think that once you go past a certain point, then what you were saying, Mike, just you're part of the spiral. And
I think that choice was when Ellie comes to him in the airport. So if we want to,
where was the point of no return?
That was the point of no return.
There's a point where Lewis thinks to himself, could I stop now even if I wanted to?
Yep.
And where is that point? Now I don't remember. It's maybe when he's getting equipment to go disinter.
Yes.
I think they already crossed the line when Judd shows him. I think with Judd's realization that he thought that he was doing something in good intentions is the power that overtook him. Which is something that he confirms.
Yeah.
So Lewis was always fated to go over this thing because he trusted Judd. He went with Judd over this thing. So that the point of no return for Lewis, though, because I think that Gage was always going to die at that point. The fact that they went over the dead fell confirmed that the evil was already going to entrench into the Creed family. But he could have left to Chicago with them and saved the family and saved himself.
And he almost wanted to. Rachel saw that he wanted to be caught in the lie.
Well, I mean, look at when he's at the Howard Johnson. Lewis is hoping that his doctor friends see him so that he has an excuse to not do this anymore. I don't know. I think I keep going back and forth on it because
it's a great point of tension.
Yeah.
It's good that we're having this discussion.
And again, it goes into the Shakespearean thing where that's what everyone always debates. Whenever you read Romeo and Juliet, you say, were they always fated to die? In Hamlet, was it always going to end that way? I mean, there is that long debate about this, and I think that's what makes this fucking story so compelling.
I think there's much more predetermination here than even Romeo and Juliet or Hamlet. And I know Hamlet's father comes back, for God's sake.
Well, it's also because they don't have a Wendigo that's roaming around the Capulet mansion. What's that thing with that horns over there? It looks like hey, what's that thing from?
Methinks that's a loon.
What's that thing from?
Funny.
I'm sorry. All right.
So
who has Hasu on right now? Or,
so we're talking about characters.
Yes.
Character Lewis.
I think we've talked about Lewis. Who else do we want to discuss? Who else stands
Let's
out?
go to the Rachel.
Let's go to Rachel. I love their relationship.
Yeah, Rachel's great.
I think the love between them is very palpable and believable, and I just love them as a couple when they're doing things right, and even when they're having arguments. I just find both of them very believable. I think Rachel falls into the naggy wife a little bit too much for me, but that's almost never not going to be the case.
Sure.
I think I was just about to say the exact same thing, but in some ways, the things that she complains about in this book are a little more believable than maybe some earlier characters from other books. Don't ask me right off the top of the head, right off the top of the bat, what I'm supposed to be talking about here.
Top of the
bat. I understand my new expression, top of the bat. But my new expression
to you?
Up the bat to you. This is the Wendigo again.
No, that's Steve Harrington.
James Wendigo.
Is when she tells that story, though, about Zelda and having to take care of Zelda and what she went through with Zelda as a kid, I 100% empathize with her.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I look at that and be like, oh, stop complaining. No, we're good.
No, it's a turning point.
Please
And
continue.
for Lewis, too.
Yeah. It's
Because
very
you
real.
are mad at her when he's mad at her. You're like, will you just grow up and accept that your daughter's going to have to learn about death?
And then she explains, and you're like, okay. You win.
I think she's got one of the darker, richer backstories when we're talking about women in King books, especially. I mean, obviously, he kind of shifted focus later in the 80s to write more female protagonists, like obviously with Gerald's Game and everything. But I think in terms of early King, which I'd still kind of lump this into, I mean, maybe just like 70s and early 80s King, I think Rachel has I think she very easily could have just been a chess piece, standard boilerplate wife. So I love the fact that he really gave her this rich backstory with Zelda that is genuinely one of the more, like, especially in the film. Like, I love how Zelda is drawn in the book as well, but just like the casting of that dude in the movie and the way those scenes are shot is so terrifying to me.
Well, to be fair, everyone's a chess piece in this. I mean, they all serve some sort of purpose to kind of detract and screw up the whole sequence of events. You know,
it's all predetermined.
It's all exactly like Rachel serves as to withhold the notions of death, so that Lewis has to struggle with the whole church incident with Ellie. I mean, they're all of them serve the beam of the Wendigo.
It's the perfect storm of factors.
It's the path of the loon.
Well, it even says at the end, like, this new nice family will move in here, and like maybe they'll have a dog.
Yeah, that's such a cheeky little like
Cujo,
80s.
Cujo.
Yeah. Cujo. For some reason, it's a prequel to Cujo. It makes no sense whatsoever.
Well, it's like
But the Canvers moved into the house the next year. Even though it's Ludlow and not Castle Rock.
Even though they
Just no
reference Cujo in the book earlier on too.
they really do. Sorry. So anyways.
Well, I'll just say that like Rachel's death, both in the film and in the book, is really so genuinely terrifying because it's her worst nightmare come true.
Yeah.
Like, it's Zelda popping out of the room at her and coming after her, which is what, like, King paints how deep that fear is in her. And like, God, I have a section in Sematary. Like, literally one of the scariest things was when she just recalls the ways in which Zelda's
comes back
memory has haunted her.
Oh yeah.
And like, I don't want to spoil it now because I want to do it in the cemetery, but it's stuff that like really got under my skin. And like, just the fact that she opens the door and then it's Zelda, and then
this miniature version of Zelda.
Yeah, and then it morphs into Gage and then kills her. And it's like, how horrible is that? Like, it's not only her sister, like her greatest fear happens, and then suddenly her dead son is there stabbing
and
her.
And also, she gets no context for any of this. Everybody withholds all the information from her. She just knows something is so wrong with her daughter, with her husband, with her dead son. Like, she's the most tragic figure in this because she's never looped in.
Imagine a transformation of your greatest nightmare coming to life, and then your greatest hope and dream of Gage being back.
Of them being the same thing.
And then it being the same, and not knowing what's happening, and then it's over.
And if there is something that the movie captures really well, it's that.
Yes.
Because that's always, to me, like, watching the movie is what happens to Rachel to me is so unforgiving and cruel and like vicious. Like, and the way that Zelda is filmed in the movie in that scene is
because you're using a mother's love against her.
Yes.
Well, here's another tragic notion to her is that she finally stands up to her parents who really fucked her over by like leaving her with Zelda all those years. She finally stands up to them and dies because of it.
Yep.
Yeah. Like, that is messed up. I mean, her father's saying, no, you should stay home. She's like, no, I have to do this. I am doing this. Take me to the airport now. And then he talks about how he's going to drive her to the airport like he was in his 30s for some reason. But she goes, does all this thing, triumphs over, runs to the airport, she misses her flight, but she gets the car, she drives and dies. Well, oh my God, that's so depressing.
Plus, when she musters the will to go to her son's funeral, and she can't go to funerals because she can't deal with it, but she has to go to her son's funeral, and what happens there?
Yep.
The casket almost falls open. Her father gets into a fist fight with her husband. Like, nothing. It just re-traumatizes her over and over and over.
Well, it reminds me, too, of Scatman Crothers in the Shining movie because King, hates the Shining movie for various reasons. But I imagine part of it is, Halloran has this whole journey of getting to the Overlook, and then he walks in and immediately gets killed with an axe.
Yeah.
There's something kind of funny about it because it's so dark and it's so, like, it's hopeless. And I feel like maybe that's something that King also struggles with in this book is, like, he saw no other route for Rachel in this. Like, he gave her this whole heroic journey to come and persevere through the presence or whatever, like forcing her to try to sleep when she's driving and all this and getting in car accidents and like finally gets there. And then like, and it's the contextless quality of it as well. I remember reading it when I was a kid and just being shocked at her death. Like, I could not believe that he did that.
Want to talk about free will? She could have stopped off at that Hojo on the side of the road where was it, Holiday Inn, I think. She sees some great deals for Holiday Inn.
Would you have, though? Come on.
Look.
I'll tell you what I would have done. I would have demanded that Judd fucking tell me what's happening.
Absolutely.
That goes back to the predestination because it's the spirit is delaying her just enough for Lewis to be able to take Gage to the burial ground, right? Mm-hmm. And then it says, okay, now you can continue on your way to get killed. Like, come on.
Well, here's the thing.
I don't need just have her be delayed.
Let's go down a what if here. let's say Judd does tell her everything that she needs to know on the phone call. Does that? I mean, that obviously changes everything, right?
Yeah, yeah.
She doesn't go to the house; she goes to her own house,
or does she tries to head him off at the deadfall or something.
Yeah.
I mean,
or she just thinks that Judd's crazy.
I mean, exactly. So I don't know how much it would change.
Well, at that point, she's believed her daughter's dreams are prophetic. So I feel
That's
like
true though too.
There's not a lot Judd could say.
Yeah,
that would make her be like, "That's crazy."
She makes the flight. Does it change anything?
Well, again, she makes the flight. I think she might get there in time to stop Judd from going.
So
it goes back to the line Randall said.
Yeah.
If there's a too late, then there would have been a successful.
Yeah. So
I mean, she's
tragic.
Very tragic.
It's so sad.
Very, very tragic.
It reminds me of Ophelia from Hamlet. Shakespeare.
Yes, exactly. This is what I'm saying.
Yes, it's true.
But also, like, the interesting part of Pascal, right, is Lewis also says he's never felt the passage of a soul before. He's a doctor. He's observed 30 plus people die in his lifetime. So as much old evil as is in the place, there's something else working through Pascal, and it has to do with the fact that he was there when Pascal died.
Are we talking about Pascal?
We can. Sorry, this was a
no. I think we
could transition into Pascal. Are we ready to leave the Creed family for a little bit?
Well, we could do Ellie and Pascal. Pascal will go back into Ellie.
Yeah. Okay. I think inevitably Lewis and Rachel will still be mentioned for the next hour or two of this podcast.
no more.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
So Pascal.
Yeah.
Pascal.
I hate the guy who plays him in the movie.
Love him.
Agreed.
Love him. I'm the only
let's
one.
hold all this off. I cannot wait for this to talk about the movie later.
Okay.
But
I'm going to defend him.
I like the way he looks. I really do.
I love the look.
Yeah.
I love the look, and I love what he does in the
execution.
movie. I think the execution's perfect for it.
Oh no, I like the look. Yeah, I hate the execution.
But speaking of the novel,
yes,
I do like how he's used in this novel. Mm-hmm. And I like how right away they say Lewis never saw Pascal again. So you're not waiting for him to come back.
Yeah.
Either.
Now, does Pascal not come back because Lewis wills him away?
I think so. I think he shut himself off to Pascal, which is another choice.
He doesn't know if it's a dream or not, but I think he hears footsteps or
and he
hears
says, "Go away."
He says, "Go away."
Yeah.
Yeah.
That freaked me out when he was like he heard footsteps and he like closed his eyes or whatever until.
Or was it footsteps? You know, that's the thing I like about it. But you never see him again.
I love it. I love
it.
It
was footsteps because it's King. Remember?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. God damn it, King.
If it's inferred, it's real.
Well, I do love Pascal as he's a dead person. His collarbone is jutting out of him. He's gross looking.
Looking forward to that.
He's an embodiment of death that is a force for good. So like that's an interesting dichotomy to me, that he can be a gross ass zombie but still be there for Lewis and try to warn him.
He's nice, but could you keep it down when you're like barging in? Does he need to slam open the door? Why don't you just go up to Lewis and just tap him on the shoulder? Hey, buddy, wake up.
Lewis is like, my wife is
You
sleeping.
need to slam the door open.
The guy's
for
brains are coming out of his head.
Oh, give me a break.
He doesn't have any.
Pascal, there's some manners in the afterlife. If you're gonna come and barge into my door, my room, you gotta like just go walk through the door. You don't even have to open it. He proves that he doesn't need to open the doors anymore.
That's true. Maybe he wanted to make a big scene.
Yeah, he wanted to make a big scene.
I do like.
There's an ego to Pascal that we.
I'll just say what I like about Pascal in the book is like he's not a ghost who's like filled with witty cracks or anything. Like he's not cracking wise. He's like a very ominous sort of spirit guide. Yeah. Whereas like in the movie, I kind of I get annoyed by him because
it cuts the tension in the movie. I think is necessary.
The part where in the book he's describing Pascal talking to Lewis, and Lewis mistakes a look that he has for compassion when in fact it is. I think he says like an old or horrible kind of patience.
Yeah.
Like. Maybe this force has seen this before.
Yeah.
Maybe he's getting fucking tired of people ignoring his fucking warnings about the stupid Micmac burying ground.
Well, again, it makes you wonder, like, is this really Pascal? In the movie, it's definitely inferred that it is Pascal because he knew that Lewis tried to save him.
Yeah,
and I think he even
it
mentions that in the movie.
It's like inhabiting the pet cemetery or the Micmac inhabiting the same vessel, right?
But who is this then?
I think it's Pascal.
The turtle.
Because when you think about it's the turtle.
It could be.
It's where to go.
It's the path of the Pascal.
It's the how to go. But
I think it's looking back. I do think it is actually Pascal because of when he's dying and the things he tells Lewis. It's all the premonition and the stone ear, the heart of the man is stone ear, and everything else.
But you get the sense that he's been sent.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I think it's actually happening. Is what I'm saying with Pascal.
I mean, because they even mentioned.
I think God sent him.
Because when
do you? I mean,
the Old Testament God, of course.
Well, when Lewis Googles him, I know, I'm just joking. when he does research to find out like where he's from, he's not even from the area. He has no idea about the burial grounds, or he shouldn't be able to have any idea.
You know,
about
Ellie
it.
says
So there is some sort of element of there's some other spirit in action here that's funneling through the guise of Pascal.
Well, he said like Ellie says that his spirit is with Lewis because Lewis was there when he died, or his soul discorporated or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think that it is some mix of him, but also.
So let's get the logistics of this. Pascal dies awfully, by the way. And then somebody just like takes him to the side and is like, "Hey, I know you're new to this. You know, like in Ghost, the guy that's from Batman Returns and Fast Times at Ridgemont High. I can't remember his name. He's dead.
Don't worry
now.
about it.
But he's just like, no, you're dead. No, you got to be with me. And they're like kicking cans for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then Pascal's like, all right, what am I supposed to do here? And they're like, all right, let me lay down all the rules for the Wendigo, for the Deadfall, all this stuff. I'm going to put it all to you. The loons, all this stuff. And then you got to go to Lewis Creed and tell him all about this thing. So it seems so.
Well, hold on, even before he dies.
Because
he opens his eyes and talks to Lewis.
So
guys, we might be overthinking this.
I'm just wondering. I just want to know if it really is Pascal or there is another force. Because if that is the case, then there clearly is a division.
Mike.
There's a division between good and evil here.
There is. I agree with that.
And there's not a lot of discussion about where that good is coming from.
I think because, hey, I've heard it once, I've heard it a million times. Without evil, there can't be good.
There's not a lot of discussion where the evil is coming from. I mean, it's just an old evil. There's an old good to go with it.
There's actually another pet cemetery in Saskatchewan, where the Saskatchewan burial ground, and they come back and they're good.
All right.
But if we're tying this into the overall realm of kings, I think we need, if we're going to be really talking about the idea of good and evil in this, and look, there are many worlds in King's universe, but is this good and evil tied to, say, what's going on in the Stand, in what's going on in the Dark Tower, all these other things, or is it a separate version? I mean, this seems to be more of a biblical good and evil.
Yeah, I mean, while there are allusions to other King books, which we'll discuss later on, I think this is very much an isolated thing. I don't relate this to too much. I mean, Randall, you've got some thoughts about the mist and everything, and the
more as a joke.
But I think that this is much more of an isolated.
I think it's
strange
tied
thing
to
happening.
the land.
Yeah,
right. And they talk about how the Micmacs, it was there before them, and they didn't leave a big mark on the land, which is somehow a point that he makes. But it was there before them. It was there that they realized that the burial ground wasn't a great place because the land was sour.
Well, they were burying cannibals there. Like there was like some talk of that, and that's partly why the ground went sour, because they were burying like evil.
But they were touched by this thing that pre-existed.
Yes.
Which I love the realization at the end when he goes back to the Indian burial ground with Gage, and he realizes that the cairns aren't even actually stacked. They've all been fallen, which means that there have been people that have come back and all. But again, no, I think it's important to know that, because if there are divisions of the good and evil there, good is really just step back here.
It's overwhelmed by the evil, I think.
Whereas in the Stand, good keeps trying and sending out dreams to all of those, and I mean it's very similar in the way. Like, if you think about
funny
it,
also,
they all have to make choices in the Stand, and although in the Stand only certain people get good dreams, and some people get bad.
With the evil spirits being so unrelenting and making sure, for instance, Rachel can't get back no matter what, and making sure that Judd tells Lewis about this thing, that Lewis is definitely going to go back. He feels so compelled. But it's almost like the good spirits are too polite. Yeah. Like, that is free will.
I think,
because when Pascal comes back and he's like, no, get out of here. Okay, Pascal never comes back again.
Well, it's opening yourself, right? If you block yourself off, they can't get in. But he's open to the other stuff that's saying, hey, go put your son up there and he'll come back.
Well, think about in the Stand. In the Stand, when people are having the dreams, evil is far more dominating than the good dreams, if I recall. I mean, I feel like Abigail sends like one message and it's like, all right, let's hope that they come. Whereas like Flag is just constantly haunting both in the dreams and in reality. So I don't know, maybe that's King's way of saying that like the purity of a person really does dwell in the soul. You know, you really do have to make that choice. I mean, maybe it does go back.
It does go to Ellie. It really tries. She's having dream upon dream upon dream. Like, it's really trying to get to Lewis.
I guess that is a good point, because if he doesn't listen to his kid, who else is he going to listen to at this point?
It's his remaining child.
That's true. That's true. Okay, so there are some equal good versus evil elements at play here.
Should we talk about Ellie?
Speaking of Ellie.
Yeah, let's talk about Ellie.
Ellie Creed, otherwise known as the spiritual sister of Danny Torrance.
Yeah.
What say you?
Yeah.
I would love to see these two meet up in the future.
I've wanted that for a very long time. I really
Want
have.
to hear those words?
Shinings.
Shinings. James Cameron's Shinings.
King's
Another
Kids.
Shining. Another Shining.
I love the King's Kids idea.
I love.
That would be a great
Like a
shirt if we
backwards
could if we
K.
could do little chibi versions.
Ooh,
of
that would actually be a great shirt.
With
Yeah.
Charlie on there.
Yeah. Oh, Charlie Decker. God, you just
No,
No,
Charlie
not-
McGee from Firestarter.
It's got a little gun.
Firestarter.
I want.
He's
Charlie,
like holding a gun. Like
I also
damn
want
it.
Charlie Decker on there.
you want Charlie Decker in this?
He's like
Yes.
has arms over the little kids. Like, hey.
Why don't we just call it Bachman Boys?
Bachman Boys, and then it would be all the kids from Long Walk.
No.
Yeah, that'd be
Anyway,
a great
Ellie
shirt.
Creed.
Ellie Creed. Love
Ellie's
Ellie
great.
Creed.
She acts like, I don't know. She's written very well. She's very sweet, and but then I love the agency that she's given by having these prophetic dreams. I think, and I like the fact that they don't really have an impact. Like, I mean, she's too young to really know what to do with them. You know.
And I like how the dreams are not. I mean, the dreams are absolutely specific. There's no question about it. I dreamed that church got run over. I dreamed that Gage was not in his coffin at the funeral, or was not in his coffin. He was at home and everything else. Yeah.
Here's a question for Ellie. Is she strictly just a plot device for Lewis? Because if you think about it, she is, what's the saying, the raison d'etre, or the...
Raison
Raison
d'être.
d'être.
She always seems to push him for his decisions. She's so worried about church. She's holding this portrait of Gage and wants him back so bad. She basically says, "Why can't Gage come back? Why I want Gage to come back. I'm going to will him to come back." A part of me, as I was reading this, was wondering, is she just a plot device for Lewis to just keep going down in his downward spiral? I mean,
When I think of plot device, I think of it in a negative way, because I still think the character is
Yeah, Ellie's a great
rich,
character.
you know?
I would say Ellie's rich the second half of the book.
Yeah,
What she serves at that point.
I don't know. I feel like she's there. That conversation that she and Lewis have very early in the book about death, and like that's so important to the fabric of the book, and
Yeah.
also it's just it humanizes both of them so much. I mean, a child's first realization that things die and
Yeah.
are never coming back, and something she loves will die. That's like so intrinsic to this book. Is that?
Well, I think
Totally.
you can realize a child as a character only insofar as children are characters, which is really not much.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
just
They're just-
kids. But I do
they're
like
sponges.
he's very good at writing kids, and I love the part where Gage can't go trick or treating, and he sort of hints that Ellie's a little bit tickled by that, and but she's
yeah.
poor Gage. I think she's realistic, and I also get annoyed by kids really easily, and she
oh yeah.
she is annoying sometimes, but also at other times she is, as they say, a deer.
No, she's
She's a
definitely written
believable
her-
child.
Yeah, exactly. And,
Except for obviously all the crazy premonitions.
well, unlike
Just a normal
40,
kid.
40-something Danny Torrance.
That's a
from
great
The Shining,
point, actually.
Who he's better at talking than I am. But I would say
He says
with-
he's 37.
He does, yeah, right. With Ellie though, there's definitely a believability that she is the child, a precocious child that is learning the ideas of grief and death. But I still would argue that most of the stuff that she says to Lewis is strictly so that he continues to feel that sort of guilt of where he's going to head towards his decisions.
Well,
The thing that kicks that off is them going to the pet cemetery,
Yeah.
right? It's her first introduction to the fact that church is going to die.
Yeah.
So it's really Judd's fault. He's the plot device.
Yeah, well, no, Judd definitely is a plot device in that sense. But
And there's no other distraction because Rachel is all doped up and in total grief. He can't talk to her about anything. So the only person he has to talk to in that entire house now is Ellie.
Yeah. I just think it's funny that
It's funny.
it's interesting that all the things that she bemoans to Lewis winds up influencing his decisions, except for the one that matters the most. When she says, "No, please come with us to Chicago," and he's like, I'm going to stay
He always
here.
hears what he wants to hear with her, though, I feel like.
He's always looking for reasons.
yeah.
Yeah, except for the very end when whatever she says can't change him. Think about it. Everything that she says to him before is a huge weight on his decision.
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
wish she had said something like, "I dreamed that Gage was killed by a Rinko truck." Thanks, Ellie. Where was that? Where was that
Yeah,
premonition?
that would have been a nice premonition to have. But I mean, I feel like she's also a tragic character too. I wonder, she's out of all the King characters, I worry about her constantly.
Can I ask a question? Let me ask this question. What happens to Ellie after the book?
'Cause she gets
Not hearing to the Pet Cemetery 2 explanation.
she gets to hang out with the Goldmans.
Oh God.
She grows up. She goes to college. She gets a job, and she does all right.
Here's my fear. Here's what my ending of my own personal film adaptation this would be, by the way, is it would cut to after the night's events, Rachel comes back, or does she know? And
So you're talking
it
about
would
like a
be-
Halloween 2 type ending, or a Halloween 2 beginning,
Or
where
just
right
like-
where the last one ended
Yeah,
up.
and it would just, the ending of my adaptation of Pet Sematary, the movie.
Oh, okay.
And it would just be a shot of Ellie being dropped off at home. And then just walking into the house, like, okay, tell your parents said, goodbye or whatever. Or even like Rachel's parents go in with her into the house, and it just ends with them going to the house. And
But it's not their house. I guess it is his house at the very
eventually,
end
yeah.
with
And
Rachel.
that who's inside that house, waiting for them to come in. But we don't know what happens to them.
Corpse Rachel and
Corpse
Lewis.
Rachel and Corpse Lewis.
Oh, you think Corpse Rachel buried Lewis in the pet cemetery?
Yeah. Or it's just Rachel, but one way or the other, there's a dead person in the house waiting for whoever's going to come in next. It's creepy. I don't know. It's creepy for me. I think Ellie's.
Meanwhile,
fucked.
Judd's house is burning across the street.
What happened
All right,
there?
bye.
Run
Bye,
inside.
Ellie.
See if your parents are there.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
but I think that Ellie is absolutely doomed.
Yeah,
it's
I do
creepy
too.
to think about that.
Well, that's why I think it's so ripe for a follow up for Ellie, because it's one of the characters. We talked about how there's always some sort of hopefulness with a lot of the characters that come out of a King story, but with Ellie, what does happen? I mean, she's fucked. Like, I mean, what she's going to say, like, how are you supposed to explain what happens? Because here's another thing. Let's say that Lewis does continue on this path. Like, Rachel comes back. It's doubtful that Lewis is going to kill Rachel. Rachel will probably kill Lewis, which means Rachel's still roaming around in that house.
Yeah.
And then, so Ellie has to find that somehow.
Yeah.
So maybe your idea of them coming back is there, but I think what's more possible is that it's just weird. I guess the events don't. I mean, this kind of segs into the events of like what does make sense, because like Steve leaves town, but how soon after that experience does Steve leave town? Does Steve finally go back and be like, "Hey, Lewis, I'm leaving, heading out"?
Hey, your hair's all white.
Somebody has to go back to that Creed house, especially since there's a fucking fire across the street.
I always assumed that Rachel and Lewis kill each other. Like in the process of killing her, he gets killed. She's going to start attacking him, and he's going to be like, "Ugh."
Oh, so you think that Lewis kind of awakens the moment that she says,
Well,
"Darling"?
self-defense. I mean, if she starts stabbing him, I feel like he's
I
going
just
to
thought
fight
that
back.
he was so gone at that point, though. He had gone to a whole other level of crazy because after everything he went through with Gage, and he still thought.
So he's just going to let her kill him?
I think he's just going to be some creepy thing where he's kissing her and then just smiling as she stabs him. I think he's
So that's
totally
the movie.
nuts.
So like the movie, yeah.
I think
But
she's
she
totally
has to
nuts at
die.
that
Someone's
point.
going to kill her. It's going to be the police or whatever.
I mean,
and I think Ellie just
It's not like
lives
these are unstoppable beings.
a thoroughly traumatized life.
I don't know. Yeah, it's crazy.
So the town is clearly going to find out about this, which is why I think, the sequel to Pet Sematary, Say What You Will, obviously the town knows everything that happened.
Here's the thing about that, because the first thing I said about Ellie was, I'd love to see something with her and Danny. But then I think about a book called Dr. Sleep. And maybe it's just better to leave it out there forever.
yeah.
Just wondering what happened to Ellie and
There's
never
no
had
good.
to be
There's
answered.
no good outcome. She's fucked up no matter
I know.
what.
And I feel like what will inevitably happen is that there will be a sequel and most of us would be disappointed because it's not the idea that we've built up for 20 years.
No. But at the
It's
same
a
time,
nostalgia thing. It's just kind of let it go, let it die. Don't bury the Ellie story in the Pet Cemetery.
Well, what if
alone.
she came out of it and she's the only Creed person to have gone through this experience. She feels the call of the place, but is able to shut herself off to it. Would you like that?
I would like that, but you know what they would do halfway through the book is they would introduce this caravan of Romanians who like to suck the souls of fucking people who've got the shine.
I think she would take on the
That's my
Pascal
fear.
role just as Pascal passed it on to her.
Yeah.
or Judd would be like, son of Judd would come.
Son of Judd.
Son of Judd.
Oh, like the bastard of Judd walks up. How old would the bastard of Judd be now? Like
He's the horse.
100
The
years
horse.
old?
Yeah. The horse you would
pregnant.
see.
That's right.
Speaking of Son of Judd, let's talk about Son of Judd's dad, Judd.
Judd himself.
He's a pretty integral character. It's impossible for me to separate him from Fred Gwynn, who played
Impossible.
him in the movie.
Disagree.
What?
We'll talk about the movie.
Okay, we'll get there.
Totally disagree with you. Mel,
Perfect,
totally disagree.
perfect casting. But he is. Well, what I questioned was when Gage kills him at the end. He starts screaming about how he knows he saw prostitutes and his wife was fucking other people. And when I read that, I was like, well, he's just saying that. Like, that's not real. But
No,
then
it's real.
I know. But then, and I was reading an article and they were just like, well, we have no reason not to believe it because everything that Timmy Baterman said about everybody was true. And so what Gage must be saying is true. And so it makes me kind of sad that,
I think it's,
I don't
think
think
it's
it's true at all.
I don't think it's true either, but it's a weird contradiction. There's a lot of contradictions going on, whether it's deliberate or not. Again, because like you said, everything with Timmy Baterman, what he says about that one person's wife cheating on him, the one person being corrupt, embezzling, I think it is at one point. And then for all of a sudden, you'd have this image of Judd's wife saying all these things about how she was gangbanged or whatever it was, or
just like having sex with the
many affairs with people over the years, and like that, anally and everything else.
With the local boys.
Well, and he says, this is the perfect way to fuck with Judd, though. Is to say all these true things and then come and be like, also, she's in hell. I saw her there, which I just don't think is true.
That feels...
That's fucking with him. And I think all of it is fucking with him.
Yeah.
And he uses Norma's voice, which she would never say that. Like, so clearly it can lie. And I think that's the perfect way to get to Judd is for him to know before it only told the truth. And now it's really like going for it and using Norma's voice in that way is like, of course she would never say that she slept with his friends and laughed at him behind his back.
I do think it's lying in that case, but it's just strange to have the whole instance with Timmy earlier on where he's not lying.
Well, I just think it underscores how manipulative and evil it is.
Yeah, that's true.
You know who's not manipulative and evil? Judd.
No, he is manipulative.
Okay, he is very manipulative, actually.
Absolutely.
But he's not evil. He's a very sweet man.
Is it his fault? Or is it the fault of the burial ground or the Wendigo that's making him so?
I think it's something that he's. I mean, I love the fact that it's like kind of a secret that he's been carrying with him his whole life. That only, it's like a secret in the town, but he's one of. And I feel like this was obviously something that maybe the Pet Sematary, the whole stuff with Timmy, that was all stuff that happened when he was younger, and I feel like maybe like that kind of stuff hasn't been happening over the last several years. So Lewis's appearance is sort of another opportunity to sort of reopen the door.
Does this mean that Norma knows about?
Just going to ask that question.
No, absolutely.
But she's able to fucking keep it to her damn self.
Well, she keeps it to herself, but there's a moment where in the book where Judd is telling all these things to Lewis, and he looks down the hall to see if Norma did fall asleep already, so that when he divulges all this information, she's not overhearing it and all. And at that point, you think, oh, he's trying to keep this secret from Norma. But I think what's happening is that he doesn't want Norma to know that he's telling the secret.
Right.
And because, she knows about Timmy Baderman, and she's the one that suggests that they need to do something about it. Judd says that explicitly. Says that Norma was actually the one that said that they need to go and solve these things. So Norma knows about these things happening.
The story is that women are better at grieving and getting over the deaths of loved ones.
Progressive Stephen King.
I think there's also something confessional about what Judd is doing because, they're all at the last strings of their life. They know that. They know that they're going towards death. Norma is suffering from arthritis, is pretty much waiting to be free from this pain. Judd knows that he's approaching the last years of his life. So I think there's some sort of confessional element to it that of all these things that he knows, before he passes, he not only just wants to expel some of these things that have clearly been kicking around in his head, but he wants to maybe feel free from it. That he can kind of
pass
wrestle
on the
with
responsibility.
Yeah, maybe there's that too. I think there's a lot of that actually. But so I think that in that sense, there's a lot of free will involved in those decisions that Judd makes.
Because he doesn't feel compelled to bring Norma back from the dead.
Exactly.
No.
He can resist it.
Yeah.
Lewis is just so ripe for the picking for that place.
Yeah, but to be fair,
they're old.
What are they going to do? You put Norma up in the pet center, she comes back, and it's just arthritic corpse, just
yeah, but nobody's thinking clearly, obviously. Why are we bringing my decapitated son back from the dead? Whose head's been stitched back
up.
Well, this Norma thing is kind of groundbreaking to me because she's able to keep it a secret.
Yeah.
I will also say, though, Norma, by what we know, has never actually been to the burial ground herself.
Oh, that's right. Isn't it visiting it as a big...
Yeah, because Judd was brought there as a kid, and Lewis was brought there, so that could be something else. If you've heard about it, but you've never actually experienced it or been in touch with it, then maybe you are...
Judd even says you can't explain it. You have to go there. He says, I can't just tell you what it is. You have to come bury your cat.
That explains that.
I'm just going to go out here and say I think Judd is the perfect Stephen King construct. I think that it's a character, we discussed this before the recording, it's a character that King had been wanting to write for years.
With Halloran and
Matt Burke and Salem's Lot.
This kind of perfect character that's emblematic of the Maine area that not only can be wise and older,
mentor,
but serve that sort of local aesthetic,
that flavor,
that says that this is a character I knew and grew up with, and here you go. And I totally believe it. He never seems too larger than life for me. He always seems like someone that I I just love being around Judd. Like I love being the fact that he's able to tell these stories in a way that don't seem too matter of factly. They don't seem too precious. They always feel like they're weathered and lived in. And I believe the stuff that he's saying. They just don't seem so coincidental to me.
Yeah, he's not a caricature.
No.
He has fun little quirks and sayings, but they're grounded in a fallible human.
Yeah.
And Judd is great. I love him. Yeah. And the fact that he makes mistakes and admits to them and feels so guilty about them makes him all the more believable.
Even now, it still feels like he's alive, although he has that awful death.
I know.
End. You don't think about that death at the end when you're reading this book, no matter how many times you've read, at least for me.
Yeah.
And it's so
still,
like,
it's so jarring and so immediate. And so
it's so humiliating and like, it's just such a sad way for him
tripping
to
over
go.
a cat and having a baby kill you.
Well, I mean, he's reaping what he sowed, though. He
exactly
brought him up there.
Yeah.
I love the Judd life though. Just having beers and smoking.
Judd
Think
life.
about that. Smoking on your front porch, watching those Orenco trucks drive by.
You know, I bought a pack of cigarettes after reading this just because I wanted to have some
Having
cigarettes
your
and have some
neighbors
drinks.
over.
with you guys.
That's why the UK had those video nasties, because they wanted to influence people like Mike Broffman getting cigarettes after watching Judd smoking.
I just want
on
all of a
his
sudden when we go to Mike's apartment, like that little porch, like
Yeah.
outside your apartment, you're on it with like a chair,
Yeah.
drinking,
It's
smoking.
like a Seinfeld with Kramer.
Yeah.
It's a porch outside of his apartment.
I do, just reading this, it made me really want to have that small town life and just have an 80-year-old neighbor that I could talk about the great world truths that
Like the wonderful world wars.
Yeah, right.
Gosh.
Yeah, I love that Judd's not just like some like ominous presence, but also not just some like folksy horny old man or something.
Yeah.
Like he genuinely resonates as wise and kind and genuine, but also at the same time like very flawed, and that's makes him such a complex, interesting character. Any other final thoughts on Judd?
We got to talk about Steve. I mean,
Steve Harrington.
Steve Harrington.
Dr. Steve.
I feel like maybe the only other characters I would really want to talk about, I'll probably end up talking about in the cemetery.
True. There are a few other ones that might be worth. I mean, like we haven't really spoke about Gage, but I don't think you really have to talk much about Gage. Great kid. Great kid.
What a great kid.
Gage has been a through line in our conversation, I feel,
Yeah.
And we'll definitely talk about him when we get to a couple future sections.
The one thing I will say is I love the staff that surrounds Lewis. Although I thought we talked about this a little bit before the recording, but
Surendra's brown
Surendra is just
Hey, save it for pound cake.
such a very bizarrely written character.
Yeah.
He only serves to. I mean, he's only.
He's only there for people to comment on the fact that he's not
Indian.
white.
Yeah, exactly.
How woke Stephen King is by including an Indian doctor in the
And
the
constantly
main town.
talking
Not
about
woke
how
at
he's
all.
Yeah, it's like no, you have to do more than just saying, "Oh, hi, I'm an Indian
Yeah.
doctor."
He also does that thing that King always does where he doesn't use contractions in his speech.
Yeah.
I know.
When there's ever like a person who's not full blown Anglo-Saxon or whatever,
imagines them as
he
Apu.
always talks like I
really
was
is.
working on this woman and I am distraught and it's like
I'm working on
fucking
woman.
think-
Like what?
Having said that, the chemistry between all the staff at Lewis's hospital is great. He captured that idea of having a really close friend that you really just kind of met.
It's true because
And I
Bill
like that.
Lawrence actually said that those scenes were the influence for Scrubs.
I'm no Superman.
It's Charlton, Surendra, and Steve just with their backs against each other.
Look, there are two characters that we have to discuss. One we've really kind of hinted at before, but how rotten of a human being is Irwin Goldman?
The worst.
man.
The worst. It's just the worst.
Just the worst.
I was totally fine with Lewis punching him right in the face.
Oh, absolutely. I wanted to do
but
it.
he's believable worst, right? Like
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
like you can totally imagine this fucking father-in-law offering a check to cover your medical school expenses.
But
if
I
you just
did
stop
think it's a
dating
little
his daughter.
weird that like if Lewis was a plumber or something, I could see this like waspy, well not waspy, obviously, but this kind of hoity-toity upper crust person like
You can say
looking
Jewish,
down.
it's okay.
But he's
Just say what you want to say, Randall. This Jew.
this fucking Jew. No, but like
We have a lot of Jewish members on the podcast, by the
Yes.
way.
We're fine.
This is a
They're
running
not-
in joke.
They do not reflect the
Including
thoughts
myself.
of all the Losers Club podcasts.
But no, like if he was a plumber or something, but he's a doctor. Like, come on. Like
I-
you're
Well, when he
mad.
offers him the checkbook, he's not a doctor yet. He's,
Yeah,
he's
but-
convinced Lewis is going to not make anything of himself.
And Rachel's having to do all the work while Lewis is in school
Turning
and
into a
everything else.
scullery maid.
Yeah, that was absurd. I just never really bought why Erwin thought he was such a loser.
I think that he's also
from the other side of the
stereotypical
tracks.
father where nobody will ever be good enough for his daughter.
because he wants Rachel to be the breadwinner. He wants Rachel to be the independent one.
It's also coming at a time when I feel like a lot of Jewish families I feel like have evolved over the years, just in generation to generation. But if I know my father's side of the family, because my father's Jewish and my mother she was adopted, so she didn't even really have a religion. But and that family didn't. The family was that she was like a lapsed Methodist basically.
Hey.
But the fact was the matter of the fact that was my father's side did not like the fact that she wasn't Jewish, and I think that there is a part of that King kind of hints at in this.
Totally.
That he's not of their kind and isn't part of the, it's a very weird thing. In fact, that they religiously don't tie together. That is a big thing. Yeah. The one thing I did think was interesting is that I don't think Lake Forest was the right suburb of Chicago to put them in.
Let's go Highland Park, please.
Exactly. It's Highland Park.
Hey, maybe in the early 80s it was. Who knows?
No, I talked to Heather about it. It was my wife, and she comes
Lake
from a
Forest
Jewish
is really
family.
close to Highland Park. You have to drive through Highland Park
that's
to get to
true.
Lake Forest.
And Lake Forest is very rich.
Yes.
Rich.
You know who lives in Lake Forest?
Who?
Mr. T.
Really?
Okay,
no
interesting.
shit.
Wow, interesting.
No shit.
I paid the fool.
Interesting. But yeah, no, Highland Park would have been the right one to probably go for, because those houses are pretty.
No, that's where my
wealthy.
dad's side of the family is from. And you are so right, because my family is super secular.
Yeah.
But when I was very young in high school, the first question they'd always ask me if I was going on a date was, is he Jewish? And it was just ingrained in them. Like they didn't, and my dad at least, like he doesn't care. It's just like the question you're supposed to
Oh
ask.
yeah.
wild.
When I married Heather and my parents asked me, or my dad found out that it was a Kaplan Jewish, and they were like, you could just tell my dad was automatically accepted he doesn't even
The
care.
little fist pump, but it's like
It's just yeah.
it's tradition.
I can't say enough how much I love religion.
I do too. It's probably my favorite part about life.
It's only led to great
Anyway.
things.
Anyway, Erwin and
no,
Dory, awful people. I throw Dory in there too, because the fact that they
Dory's
left.
just wallpaper.
Yeah, I don't
left-
think
I'm
she's
finding-
an evil character. I think she's just been beaten down.
But
when
when she mentions
Emotionally,
when
I
she
should
talks about how Zelda was, she brings the concept of Zelda and how hard it was for the family and whatnot, and totally dismisses the fact that she left them.
That
left
and
her.
when Lewis tries to appeal to them at the funeral, she can't
Yeah.
stand up to her husband
No.
and be
Yeah.
like, will you fucking shake this man's hand?
Exactly.
But I think again, that's just. I'm sure that having that husband was absolutely an awful experience for years and years. I think at that point she's just so beaten down. It's almost like It's almost like the opposite of how Michael is in Christine. To go back
Yeah,
to Christine and how he's
that's
just
true.
kind of been withered down, has nothing to say.
I don't think we get enough of her to even know.
Yeah,
like maybe
exactly,
she's just a wet dish rag of a human being.
Yeah.
It looks like we're finding Dory.
Oh boy. Well, what a transition.
What a transition! I
We,
mean,
we don't want to talk about Timmy Baterman.
I think
Timmy
I think
in
that's
the
some cemetery
cemetery.
stuff.
I think Zelda and Baderman and I think those two are going to be in the cemetery for sure.
Yeah, they're hiding
make a
behind the
good point.
tombstones.
Yeah.
Waiting for us.
And I think the character of Missy Dandridge is better discussed in the adaptation.
I just think it's weird that Lewis is like, Missy won't care about the dirt all over the sheets.
Yeah, that was
It's
a little
so
weird.
weird.
That was a little weird.
The focus on the laundry is interesting because it reminded me of all those like internet theories about Pulp Fiction when John Travolta washes his hands and he can't wash the blood off and it stays on his hands, and Samuel Jackson's able to wash it off and get the rags dirty and everything. It reminded like that sort of metaphor, the visual metaphor of getting rid of your dirty laundry. Is like it's just another literal metaphor I felt that King had to put in there because he's so focused on the laundry chute. Like even when he comes down in the morning, he like looks at the laundry chute and all. It was big enough that he actually includes it in the movie. Like
Well,
there's a huge
for more
focus on that,
information
too.
on Pulp Fiction, please stay tuned for our offshoot Pod Fiction. That will be releasing later this
I
spring.
guarantee you there's probably 3 podcasts out there called Pod Fiction.
Oh, God.
Probably.
No question.
Yeah.
Well, I'm hearing the creak of cemetery gates. That sounds like a doorknob, but
Hey,
it's a very modern cemetery.
It's time to climb on the tree and hop into
the cemetery.
What's the bottom of the truth?
Well, sometimes that is.
So, This episode is going a bit long. We have a lot to say about this book. We love this book. We're going to go even further. So we are going to hold off our visit to the cemetery until next week. Tune in, and then you can hear us discuss the scariest parts of Pet Sematary, and oh boy, there are a lot. And then we're also going to talk about the best writing in the book, a little bit of Pound Cake, King's Dominion, all the good stuff.
You know what? This is kind of pissing me off because I got all my shovels. I got everything ready to go into the cemetery, and now we're not going.
If
You're
there's
just going
one
to
thing
have to
that's true,
hide out in the cemetery all night.
Yes,
and
we're just
wait
going to
for
have
us
to sleep
come
in the
back.
bushes.
and the good news is, if there's one thing that's certain in this life, it's death.
I got some hot friends. God, I got some hot friends.